Hey. This is your girl, Ashley Michelle, and you are visiting the ladies' room. We have our lady, Mrs. Cannon Hill. We have Mrs. Jovo and Mr. Darwin Hill. All right, y'all. How y'all doing tonight?
We are great. We are
Yes, I'm
great.
awesome.
Doing good.
Yep,
Excited
yep,
about
yep,
these
yep.
topics tonight.
I am too. All right. So, welcome to the ladies' room, everybody out there. Thank you all for joining us. We talk about everything from dating and relationships and marriage to parenting and current events, in popular media today. And we love to hear from you guys too. So chime in, come visit us, hear what we have to say. But later on in the show, we take callers and you can even come on screen with us and share your 2 cents as well. For those of you who are watching, go ahead and hit the like button and tap the subscribe button and the share button. Share it with all your friends through Messenger, through text message, and on Facebook. We want more people to chime in, come in with us, and talk about these issues. All right. We like to jump right into the show. Okay. Our first topic is why should or should not a woman propose to a man? Why should or should not a woman propose to a man? We've seen this quite a few times. Recently, we saw Rick Ross's lady propose to him. I wasn't quite sure if that was real or if she was a fan proposing or pretending to propose. I wasn't sure if that was his real lady or what. But it's something that has definitely happened and I want to know what you guys have to say about it. What should or why should or should not a woman propose to a man? Who likes to go
Hmm.
first?
I could kick it off.
All right.
For me, some of these social norms and things like that are really kind of arbitrary. Um,
Okay.
and I mean, a lot of things have a place. The main thing that I believe keeps women from um proposing to a man or doing that would be, tradition. Because traditionally, not only is a man seen as the one who should do the proposing, but women are also generally criticized for being too forward or uh, will be considered not feminine enough for making the first move. Like they're more expected to just sit around and kind of wait for that to happen as opposed to making it happen, because then they're also criticized as being like too pushy or trying to trap a man or trying to get him and force him to do something. um so that's traditionally the way that it's seen, but I think that with a lot of the young generation coming up, I just don't think that they necessarily view things the same way that we have in the past. So I think that they're a lot more used to, they're a lot more open to doing things in a less traditional manner. And that I see as one of them. Now, like for me personally, the way that I grew up, I wouldn't do it because of the way that I grew up, right? And my attitudes, but I'm still aware that that's just based on the time frame and the social norms of the time from when I grew up. But since those attitudes and the social norms around that is changing, women are going to be doing that more often, and and it's going to become more normal, I believe. Like probably over the next couple generations, it won't be as taboo or as odd as it is for us. So I mean, I don't see anything wrong with it, especially when you think about the fact that social attitudes are changing. Then it won't have the same connotations that it would have had in the past.
Okay.
That's just my 2 cents.
All right. I definitely have a follow up question, but I want to hear from you guys. I want to hear from Mrs. Jovo. What do you think?
So the reason why I think, and I I agree with a lot of what Cannon said. A lot of us are taught these traditional um, social norms, these traditional things that just from generation to generation. You just see a norm and you assume that okay, that's how things should go. However, the beef I have with the woman who proposes is she cannot propose and then they get married and then later on down the line make comments like, well, you're supposed to be the leader of the house, or you're supposed to be leading us or guiding us. You need to step up, quote unquote, be a man. And I've actually seen this happen. I've actually seen this happen. I have seen women manipulate themselves into situations to where either the man is manipulated to propose to them, or they propose to the man, and then later in marriage or early in marriage, like that early middle part, oh, well, he doesn't want to step up. He doesn't want to lead us. He doesn't want to guide us. He doesn't want to be, quote unquote, the man. Well, I mean, how can he lead and guide when you're manipulating and you're leading everything? You started this off. You popped off the whole marriage. That's my thing. And then I am traditional in the sense of I think the man should do the proposing, because if you can't say, well, I want him, so I'm going to propose to him, and then turn around and say, well, he needs to act like he wants me. You're not giving him a chance. And then, and some ladies might get upset when I say this, a lot of women, especially in these newer times, they are proposing to men off of this impulse, this urge that they need to satisfy. They see what society expects of them. You have that situation where they've been together for X amount of years. Maybe they were in high school together. Maybe they were in college together, or they just been together for a long time. Maybe there's a child involved, and he is not popping the question, or he has a different idea of marriage than she might have, and they're just like together. They cohabitating, whatever. Okay. And then all of a sudden she's like, well, let me just nudge him a little bit. Let me start talking about it. And then, okay, he's talking about it, but he's still not moving. Okay, well then let me propose to him. The best example I could probably give you, rapper Jim Jones and his fiance, or maybe they're secretly married and they kind of milking this for the TV exposure. I don't know. But they've been in a relationship forever. She's proposed like what, twice? Once, twice? And they're still right back where they started. So I'm just, I wouldn't do it, but I'm not surprised that women are doing it. But my, I guess, follow-up question for them is, how do you expect him to lead when you popped it off in the first place? That's how I think and feel about it.
All right. Thank you, Mrs. Jovo. And what about you, Darwin?
So I got some pushback for you, Miss Jovo, but I'll get to that. But I don't see nothing wrong with a woman proposing. I actually think sorry. I actually think women should probably propose a little bit more. For the simple fact that more women are being raised to want marriage. So why wouldn't you propose? If you want a marriage, go after it and get it. If a man is taking too long, and if you feel like that's a good man, then I don't see nothing wrong with you proposing. That's what you want, right? So go ahead and do it. I don't feel like the man leadership skills has devalued because she kicked it off. That's just something she desired more than him at the time, and that might propel him to get ready for marriage, and it might not. I mean, both parties have the same urge to want to please each other. So a woman can propose just for the sake of pleasing the man, and the man, I think most of the time they do the same thing, especially when they're in some type of doghouse. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's wrong reasons to propose on both ends, and it's right reasons to propose on both ends. So I think it's totally mutual.
All right. Well, I have a couple questions. So I wanted to ask you, Cannon, and you, Darwin, since you all have a similar viewpoint. What could the worst thing? What is the worst thing that could happen? What are some of the consequences? I know Jovo mentioned one, but what are some of the consequences of a woman proposing?
I think that is only as far as, like I said, some of the societal things. And that's why I said that I see it changing more so with the up and coming generation, because they don't behave the same way we do, and they don't view things the same way that we do. So the things that Ms. Jovo mentioned are a lot of the stereotypes that I was talking about, that a woman who's proposing, she's doing it out of desperation because she's trying to push him to do it, you know, all of these other things, even from the point of view of that leadership idea, to say, oh, now he can't be the leader the way that I'm perceiving it because I started the marriage. That's like more of a religious, like I say, older school mentality of even that leader, follower, submissive, whatever, head of the household, whatever. All of those things are older ideas. And as we get older, like I say, the younger generation, when you're talking to a lot of 18, 19, 20-year-olds, they don't see things that way. They're not like, oh, you know, he has to be the leader. Like, that's not how they're thinking. So I think that as there is a shift, right? I think that the first ones in general to kick it off socially are going to bear the brunt of the fact that socially, the opinion hasn't shifted enough for the behaviors to line up. And what I mean by that is like right now, even though the ideas are shifting, right now you probably run the risk of being seen as emasculating the man, even if he it may be if he may have been okay with it, but since socially it's still not where you would want it to be, he could feel pressure or be like, oh, she emasculated me, like now I'm like, you know, I'm not a man no more or whatever. And so that could cause issues in a relationship and stuff like that. But I think that that's more so, again, with us older, like our generation, older, whatever. I don't think that that's necessarily going to be the case with the younger ones coming up, and the ones after them. I just don't think that they're viewing relationships and viewing gender roles and viewing all those things the same way we did. Like, look at how even more accepting they are of like gender roles and homosexuality, just all of these different things that they're way more accepting about, that they're growing up with, that we didn't. So of course we're gonna have all of these all these preconceived notions, and it'll play out that way within our relationships. But the younger ones, like I said, they don't view it the same way. So it's really, it's not gonna play out the same way. It'll just be seen as, like he said, a more mutual situation where it's like, well, I want to get married. Let me go for what I want or whatever. And just like even one of the points that Ms. Jovo brought up, when she said, well, you know, a lot of women are like, well, I want him to desire me. That's true. But men like to be desired too. And I think that that's something that gets lost in the sauce a lot of time as well. And us as women, a lot of time don't even pay attention to that or think about that. We like, there is that perception that we need to be chased. We need to be pursued. We need to do all of these things. And we don't ever think or consider on the other end that this other person wants to feel desire as well. And what that may look like from person to person can be totally different. So as we, like I said, as our minds shift and we not stuck in these narrow boxes so much, I don't think that there'll be as large implications. But as of right now, just like you stated, we are totally guided by the way we grew up, the things we were taught, the things that we saw. So I think that in our generation and before that, it can lead to more issues in a relationship just because of those strict boxes that we have in our mind. But the younger generation is not growing up like that. So I think it'll be just fine.
Okay. Is it not a natural thing for a man, though, to be the one to say, okay, I want you as more? I don't know, maybe this is, I need to talk to some of the younger guys. But is it more natural for a man to say, okay, you know, I want this woman, I want to move on with her. And if I don't say that, if I don't initiate that, that means it's because I don't want that. So
yeah, that's what I mean. I don't know if that's a natural thing or a social construct.
But so would you say, well, Darren, what would you say? Like, are there men out there who are like, yeah, I really want this woman, but I'm just gonna, you know, like, I'm just gonna sit on it and not, I mean, I guess you do have people who are in those types of relationships. They could be living with a woman and even say that she's a wonderful woman and still not like move forward with the marriage. But is that typical? Like, is that a typical thing, or when a man is ready, he's like, okay, I'm ready. I'm gonna go ahead and move this forward. And I ask
think
that only because my thinking is a little bit like, well, if he doesn't make that step, it's because he doesn't want it. Or what would you all say about that?
I think men, we typically, if we're happy and we're okay with with things, we don't see a reason to change anything, right? So if I'm living with a woman for 3 or 4 years and we're happy, we're everything's going smooth, we're building, we're growing, we learn each other. Marriage might not cross my mind like, oh, it's time to get married. It's just not a big of a deal as it is for women, So I think women do push the issue, and for the sake of pleasing our woman, we will go and get married. Like, okay, we'll propose, but I don't think marriage is a big deal. We don't need that title to validate like our relationship as much as women do, because society says a married woman is a what they call it. What's the word? What's the term? They say
Uh, a wife is a good thing. Is that what you're talking
yeah,
about?
make my
Man?
daughter a good
Oh,
woman,
an honest woman.
yeah, honest woman. Like it seemed like they need that title to be solidified in the world. Men don't need that, so why would we push a marriage and push for that title? And it's just because, like she said, social construct and the dynamics of that and how women were raised, right? So I think it's a little bit of a teamwork effort to get to that point where women want that marriage, and I think women have to just bear the burden of, hey, if I want this marriage, I need to push more than this man, because the way men were raised, they don't necessarily need this to validate themselves as much as I do to have a place in society. So I think women need to understand that and just be like, and just just take that bullet and say, if they have to propose, yeah, but I don't encourage a woman to propose if she doesn't want to. Now, if a woman wants to, then go ahead. Don't worry about what people say, because I think that's the biggest consequence of a woman proposing is the backlash that she'll get from friends and family and society, calling her dumb, calling her weak, and stuff like that. I think that's the only bad negative thing that can come from that. But other than that, I'll just say go for it, and just.
So, but I think sometimes women could put themselves in a really bad situation because, and I've seen this happen where a woman is pushing for marriage or suggests marriage, and the man goes along with it. So now they are married to a man that really doesn't want to be married to them. So I don't know. But I guess, people could say the same thing the other way around. A man proposes to a woman and she's just saying, yes, we don't really know if she really is into it or what. I definitely have some of those old school constructs and that old school way of thinking. It makes sense to me, but at the same time, I do understand that some people just don't think like that. I just think that women have to be very careful though, because I in my observations and just from what I have known about men or even seen from men, it's like, when they want you, they move forward with it, and I've seen situations where women are pushing for a relationship or marriage, and the man is like half in, half out because he never really wanted to be there in the first place. It seems like men typically do take the lead on those things. And maybe that's not natural. I don't know. Maybe that's generational. I don't know. But it's something to think about.
I think it's about also, and going back to the specific woman, I will admit to the fact I have a specific woman in my head that I'm thinking of in terms of the characteristics of some women who do decide to propose. I think she needs to be very careful about really thinking about, okay, I'm going to do this. I mean, I've seen people propose, men propose to women, women propose to men, and they have not had not one conversation about marriage and what that might look like. I have a big problem with that. And they should have a big problem with that. There are so many marriages ending in divorce because nobody wanted to have the conversation about marriage in the first place. And then you have these marriages, that start out with the person proposing, let's say the woman, since we're talking about that tonight. And then now it's like, oh, now we're gonna start talking about marriage because now she's proposing. You know, we got people talking about marriage the first year that they married, and it's like, that ain't gonna work. You need to have a clear-cut conversation about marriage and commitment before that happens. And I think a lot of times when we and I will admit, Darwin, I've been one of those people that, you know, I've given the woman a side eye when I saw that she proposed to a guy. I will admit to that because of how I was raised, how I grew up, my spirituality, my spiritual principles. It goes somewhat against that. Okay. I will be the first one to admit that.
And
However, I also gave it a side eye because y'all just not talking about marriage, or you're doing it because you want to trigger the discussion about marriage. You know, it's like why, it's like why play the games? You know, like just have the conversation with him about marriage. If you want to know why he hasn't proposed, just like we're pushing her to make that first move, ask him why he hasn't proposed. Okay, these are conversations that I think people need to have when they're dating. That society has told us, oh, that's too intimidating, or oh, you're coming on too strong. If you're a woman who desires to have a man that's going to propose to you, you need to be having a conversation with him early on about these are some of the things that I'm going to desire when I decide that I want to be into something long term. I know I did.
and you
I
know,
did.
even even with my view of not, I don't believe there's nothing wrong with a woman proposing. I still will give that woman a side eye, only because I don't. Everybody, when something happens that's is out the ordinary, I think everybody's going to question it. Like, oh, that doesn't usually happen. So it's always going to be that 50-50. Like, why did she propose? Is she desperate? Or does he have some type of hang up about proposing, about marriage, and he just doesn't want to? So I'm all for it, but I'm still going to look at that woman like, hold on, you know, what's going on with this? You know, because it's something different, and anything that's different to society, it deems to be, we deem it to be wrong or weird or just crazy. But that's just natural, right? Just like before gay people came out on TV and stuff like that. When we saw it, it's like, oh my God, why these two dudes kissing? But when you sit down and think about it, it's like, ain't nothing wrong with it. You know, it just was disturbing to our eye because we're not used to seeing it. So we're not used to seeing a woman get down on her knee proposing. So it's gonna be like, man, this ain't right. You know, like, what's going on, sis? You know what I'm saying? You desperate? But you know, we, like you said, we never know why she did it. We never know why he didn't do it. So it's going to always be that assumption that something's wrong instead of maybe this is the dynamic that will work for them.
And I think it's like 5% of women, 5 or 6% of women actually do propose to men.
Yeah.
And out of that 5%, how do you know percent of how do they are they still married, or how was the divorce rate on that?
See, that's what I'm wondering.
Yeah.
That's what I'm wondering. And I almost, you know, I want to find somebody that has actually done this like in real time. I've witnessed it.
Where's the stat man at? Rashad's the stat man.
I know, right? We missing him tonight, right? We missing him tonight. But out of those 5% of women, I wonder how many of them actually have had conversations with a man or with men about that they're with and going to propose to. How many times have they actually talked about marriage? You know, and Darwin, you know this as a man. How many times have you heard men say they've dated this woman for a period of time, or they lived with her or whatever, and not even 6 months into it, you could just tell by the way he talks about her, the general way that he speaks on her and their relationship. It's either gonna give you one or two vibes. Oh, she must be the one for him, or he will straight out tell you, this ain't going nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you're right. And even though they do talk highly of this woman and they're doing all the necessary steps that you would think that's going to lead to a marriage, man, we still don't just talk about it. You know, like me, I made myself conscious to like open up these discussions with my friends and ask them, like, so you gonna marry her? You know, just see what they gonna say. And they look at me like, man, nah. But I'm looking like, why not? She do all this. She checked off all your lists. Why you not gonna marry her? And I don't know what's the hang up about. But I guess because the pushback from friends and society and everybody's thinking that like once a man gets married, he's on lockdown. It's over with for him. So I guess and it's hard to give up our player card. It's hard, and because it's a lot of perks that come with that. It's just not all about having woman and woman. It's a lot of perks that come with it. And when you give it up, you basically transforming yourself into the unknown, because you don't know how you're going to be as a husband. But you were 33 years single, a player, and now you want to turn into this man that's with one woman, and it's scary for us, and we don't talk about it, but it's like just by being a man, we want to succeed in everything. So that's why when a lot of men don't succeed, you get this angry man now in this backlash. And it's not because the woman did something wrong. It's just because he can't deal with the fact that he failed. So I think when men talk about marriage, that's a big step. And I think women don't look at marriage as like men do. Like marriage is I think women look at it like an accessory. Like this is something I'm gonna get this marriage and I'm gonna look good because I'm married. And I think men look at it like, man, when I get married, it's gonna change my life. So do I really want to do this? You know what I'm saying? Like that, but we don't know if it's gonna change our life for the good or the bad. But it's gonna change your life. It's gonna change your life. And I think more women, because you get to dress up in your white dress, you get you get the parade, you get all of this, you get to look beautiful for that day, and you hear the success stories, you see the big rings, you see the honeymoon. But a lot of people, and it should be, they don't tell you about the horror stories, So I think a lot of women, they use that marriage as an accessory instead of you should be very scared to get married, very scared.
Right.
Not scared, but cautious.
We also have to remember that, women's worth a lot of times in our society is tied to whether or not she's married. So I think that women do naturally see or do just typically see marriage differently too, because, as we get older, people look at you with a side eye if you're not married. If a man is older, some people do look with the side eye, but mostly nobody really looks at an unmarried man, no matter how old he is, as though something must be wrong with his character or his personality or the type of people that he's dated. Nobody thinks that. But for an unmarried woman, you do have a stigma. And it starts from very early on, like everybody is teaching women that they need to find a husband. But it's not very often that you hear it happens. I know it happens, but generally speaking, people are not, communicating to men that, you need to be married. I mean, you see it a little bit and you see it in some circles, but mostly men grow up and they might have their mama who wants them to get married so that they can have some grandbabies, but generally speaking, society doesn't have this idea that a married man is more worthy than an unmarried man.
So Ashley,
so hold on, I want to ask a question. So wouldn't you say that as a result of that, a lot of our behaviors and our interpretation of things and the way we interact with each other is a lot of times predicated upon what the culture is like at that moment? And you just said that that a woman's value a lot of time is basically tied to whether or not she's married. And I agree with you. I criticize that point all the time.
Yeah.
But what I'm seeing are those things changing. And that's what I say are the things that are movable and changeable. That's why I say, like, we have these ideas, like all of these fixed beliefs about certain things, like they're just natural. And it's like a lot of them are not natural. A lot of them are sometimes as humans, like we do it as a response to our environment. You know what I'm saying? Whatever is necessary kind of at that time for certain things. And so I'm agreeing with you. And like I said, Ms. Jovo, that I think when you at certain generations, right, that you can kind of apply certain motives to certain things. But I think as we move forward, we are seeing a lot of different conversations about whether or not that makes sense to tie a woman's value to whether or not she is with a, like, things are shifting drastically, you know what I mean, in a very short period of time. And I know I keep like beating this dead horse, but I think that we are severely underestimating how our culture is shifting in a way that we aren't even really able to grasp onto quickly, because this is the first time in human history that shifts have happened this quickly because of technology and things like that. Like, even if you look at things like, and I'm not here to argue about it or against it, but even if you look at things like the Me Too movement, look at such a drastic shift in the attitudes about gender roles and what's normal in the workplace and all that. That stuff changed like that, and that's not typical. So I'm just saying that, yeah, I agree, especially growing up and coming up, and like to Darwin's point that he brought up about how marriage a lot of times is seen as something that a woman, because she wants the pretty dress and she, and this and all of that stuff is taught. You are not born wanting a pretty dress. You know what I mean? Like a sight unseen, right? No, that's culture telling you this is how your value is tied. This is how we're going to judge you. These are the things you're supposed to want. And then as a result, we act on those. But I think, like I say, that's happening less and less. Like for me personally, my husband wanted to have a wedding more than I did, because I didn't want to do all the background work and all the effort, because it wasn't going to be for me. Because like I literally didn't even care about it. So if I'm doing it, I'm only doing it for everybody else. And then I just didn't want to do that. There was no motivation for that for me. And so, and that's what I'm saying. Like, so you can't turn around and be like, well, you're not really a woman because you didn't want it. Like, no, it's not me. Like, I didn't want that. You know?
So so I'm sorry. So on the flip side, Ashley touched on it, like how women are raised from little girls to want these things, and men are not. So moving forward, do you start teaching your daughter to, to not want a marriage and to just focus on her and to date as many people as you want to, and don't worry about society? And do we try to cultivate our sons and tell them to be a little bit more open to settling down earlier? Like, how do we fix this? Or is it a fix, or is it just going to be a natural progression? What do y'all think?
I think it's important, and Joel, I want to hear more from you because you're the mom, right? Just, from my own experience, being a single woman and being, a woman that was raised in a more traditional type family with very old school values, I believe that it's important for families and parents to teach the same things about marriage, or to teach the things that they teach their daughters about marriage to their sons as well. You have to prepare daughters and you have to prepare sons. Otherwise, you're going to have an imbalance. And we see that today. We see men complaining that women are not raised to be wives. But honestly, there are women who were raised to be wives, and we have the same complaint. We have the same complaint that, men, they want traditional wives, but they haven't been taught and trained on, and they haven't seen healthy examples on being a good husband. All they know is the woman is supposed to submit. That's what they know. So I think that it's problematic when you have, girls being taught one thing about marriage and boys being taught another. I'm always going to remain true to what my beliefs are. I am a Christian woman, so a lot of my beliefs are rooted in that, and it's such a big part of me that it's a part of my thinking and how I approach life. And I'm going to share these things with my children, boys and girls. But at the end of the day, I also want them to be aware of other cultures, of other religions, and be smart about, different perspectives. I think I'm very cognizant of other perspectives, and they have to make that decision on their own.
I actually asked that question wrong. I actually wanted to ask it like this: Do we teach our sons to focus on marriage along with our daughters, or do we teach our daughters to focus on dating more to find her self along with our sons? Because I tell my son that date, and at one point in my life, I was thinking like, I'm not gonna tell my daughter to date and meet dudes and this and that, because I tied dating. What did I tie dating to? Sex, right?
Sex.
So I tried dating to sex. So there's no way I could tell my daughter to date as many people as she wanted to. But now that I'm getting old and a little bit wiser, I feel like I know. Well, I'm going to start telling. I'm gonna tell my daughter. She's 12 now. My oldest daughter's 12. I'm gonna tell her, date who you want to date. If you don't have to settle down with anybody at a certain age, or you don't have to be pressured to be with anybody. If you date someone for 2 weeks and don't work, and after it don't work, after 2 days, if you want to date somebody else, go date that person too. It's nothing wrong with dating. So I think that's the approach that I would take. I would teach my daughter the same way I've been teaching my son now, instead of teaching my son to just, hey, you need to be married by this age, and because the older you get, you don't want to be dating all these women, stuff like that, because that's a lot of pressure for anybody. Because because the older you get, you're going to be like, you're going to start thinking you're failing at something, right? Because if someone tells you need to be this age, or you need to have this, and you need to have that, and then you're getting older and you don't get it, in your mind, you're doing something wrong, when that's not the case at all, so.
Now, so my daughter's 10 years old, and it's very gorgeous child. And I'm not saying that because I'm her mama. I am saying that because I'm her mama, but very gorgeous child. My princess is beautiful. She made a good point, and and my 10-year-old made a good point to me. She does not really talk to me about the boys. She talks to her daddy about the boys. And her rationale behind that is, well, daddy used to be a boy. So he knows why boys say and do things that they do. And so one of the lessons that I've learned as being a wife and as a mom and a parent in general is that about myself, and what I learned about myself, and one of the lessons is that I grew up around a lot of strong women and a lot of silent, strong uncles. They didn't verbalize what we're supposed to do. They kind of did it through their action, their work ethic, things of that nature. But the conversations didn't happen. Okay. So I had to teach myself, and like kind of dummy slap myself, as you say, is, hey, you ain't doing this by yourself. You got a helpmate. You have your husband. So I have removed myself right now about the conversations with boys. I let her dad deal with it, and they talk and they dialogue. I still teach her how to be a young lady. I'm really big on her increasing self-esteem as much as she can at the age that she's at, because she's in double digits now, and pretty soon she's going to be in middle school. Middle school is brutal. Okay, Ashley, you're an educator, so some of these kids, they can be brutal. Some of these situations, they can beat up on you. I want her to have a belief in self. I want her efficacy and her esteem to be prepared, so that when she does start dating, she knows exactly what she wants. She knows who she wants. She knows what she's going for. She knows what she's not going to go for. Because, and I hate to say this about a lot of us in our generation, but I know for me, I didn't get those conversations. And so, I think that also shapes my attitude and my belief, like Cannon was saying, around a woman who would propose to a man. Because I don't think I had anybody to really have that conversation with me, that, hey, there's nothing wrong with you doing this. I was, brought up in a Christian home. I am a Christian. I believe in kind of the traditional sense of marriage, but I'm kind of like what Cannon was saying. I'm not going to judge you if you decide to do that. I just want you to make a clear, informed decision on whether or not you should propose to this man. So, I think Darwin got a point about us teaching our daughters and being open-minded to the fact that you can't just teach them in one lane. So I had to kind of remove myself and say, you know what? Her daddy used to be a boy. Maybe it is easier to talk to the boys about the former boy, and I mean, they make a whole big thing out of it. They go to, there's a cupcake shop around the corner from my house. They go on dates, and they have a whole conversation about boys. And then later on, I might ask some questions, and then my husband like, but that's between me and her though. She gonna come tell you when she's ready, So I think that both parents, this is where mama, for me with the daughters, I think that this is where mama it might benefit you to just step to the side and let daddy, who used to be the boy, talk about the boys with the daughters. And then with the sons, and Cannon, I know you have a son, you're able to get him perspective on, okay, let me tell you why what you said to her is crazy, or let me tell you how this is because you were dating once, you were a girl, you were a woman. So I think a lot of times we have it backwards, where women think we got to hold on to these daughters and teach them all of these traditional things, which is nothing wrong with that. But I think we need to think outside the box, bring dad into the picture. So that's
Okay.
Yeah.
We have a caller, Cannon. Let me bring in the caller and then hold on to your thought, okay?
Okay.
All right. We have a caller. Welcome. His name is JT. You with us, JT?
How you guys doing?
Yeah.
Hi.
Hey.
I like to talk about a few things. The first thing I would like to talk about, I don't think that men are scared to get married. I think what it is, we don't want a failed marriage. And the reason why we don't want a failed marriage is because, number one, it's a reflection on us as a man. Number two, the blowback from family court and all the other things, and I don't want to go all into it because it gets a little deep, but the blowback from family court usually tends to lead a little bit more towards women, and it's a little bit unfair to us. And so we may love you, but we also, in the back of our minds, we have to think about the liability of a failed marriage. Mm-hmm. The other thing is, unfortunately, our society doesn't hold married people together, and with that, it's like it used to be. If you were divorced, you were kind of ostracized for being divorced. So there was kind of once you got married, it was kind of an incentive to be married. But now, people just wake up in the morning and say, you know what, I don't want to be married to you anymore, and they can just go and file divorce paperwork, and that's it. And there's no real consequence, like it from a societal standpoint, like it used to be. As far as the women proposing to the men, and this is just my opinion, I think women have always kind of proposed to men, or kind of let them know where they stood or what they wanted. It just came off a little subtle, and I'll give you a few examples. Trap marriages. So say a guy and girl are fooling around, the girl gets pregnant, and she's like, oh, well, you need to marry me. That, in a sense, is a proposal. It's not dropping to one knee and giving a guy a ring, but that, in a sense, is a proposal. Having the conversation, well, I want to be married. I don't know what you want out of this. I want to be married. We've been dating this long. I want to be married. That, in a sense, is a proposal. So, I'm going to be honest with you, because, I'm all for men. I am pro-men. I'm all for holding men accountable, where it's necessary. But I'm also, for men being wise on making certain decisions. And, that's just for me. Now, I don't like it. I don't like the idea of a woman coming to me and getting down on one knee and handing me a ring. If the girl did try it, what my answer is going to be. My answer is going to be no. But unfortunately, I see this is the way society is going, and society never moves backwards. It always progresses forward. You just have to consider how you're going to move when society moves forward.
Okay. Do you all have any questions for JT?
Yeah.
Question.
I was just curious about. I was just curious about the liabilities in court. Like the what type of liabilities are you talking about?
Oh, okay. So, and well, you know what? I'm just gonna put it out there. Let's take the typical marriage that's failing. You get married to a woman, you guys have kids, marriage doesn't work out, so now you go to the courts. You typically don't have access to your child. I'll give you another example. And this is a real life example. I had a friend whose wife cheated on him, became pregnant by the guy she was cheating with. While they were filing for divorce, his lawyer told him that he was going to have to file a special motion because typically judges consider a child, when a mother is pregnant, they consider that child the child of the marriage, even though it doesn't belong to the husband. So that's another thing that a man really needs to that a man considers. So, like for me, when I talk to young boys, and they're in that courting age, and when I talk to young men or any man that has never been married before, the best piece of advice I give them is to take $300, $400, $500, go buy an hour of a lawyer's time and talk about the risk. And a lot of times I be getting blowback like, hey, $500 is a lot of money. I say, yeah, but divorces cost more. You could spend $10,000 and more on a divorce. So these are all things that need to be considered, because like when you look at New Society, they don't never talk about that. When you go to the church, they don't talk about the bad side. The church is always going to be pro-marriage, and rightfully so. But you need to talk to somebody that can make things a little bit more real and talk about the dark things that can happen, not to scare you off. This is not a scare tactic. This is not like what that old show they used to have for bad kids, Scared Straight, where they used to take them to prison.
Right.
This is not that. This is to give you a more realistic view of what can happen if things fail.
So I don't want to make this a law conversation, but
the reward, but a lot of people don't talk about the risk.
Okay. Darwin and then Cannon.
I don't know. I want to make this a law conversation, but I think when you're married, you kind of cut those liabilities in half, because the simple fact, when you marry a woman and you have kids, you automatically have rights after the divorce. Now, if you're single, you have a kid with a woman, you're not married. Now you have to establish paternity. You have to do all these things. You have to go. You have to actually go and get your rights now. But when you're married with a woman and you get a divorce, that's all settled at that one time. Like them your kids, like you said. Even if it's not your kid, even if she cheated, that's your kid. And so I don't know the waiting to see your kid after the divorce. Maybe it's some special cases that might happen. But typically, that's all handled in court when you get divorced. You don't have to establish paternity. You don't have to go and get your fatherly rights. When you married that woman and you have kids, your fatherly rights is automatically attached to that.
Yeah. Well,
your fatherly rights may be attached to it. And I mean, I'm not a lawyer and I'm not giving legal advice. But what I'm saying is courts tend to lean heavily more towards the mother. Now, I mean, in some states, now things are actually starting to change, because you're starting to have more father's rights advocates and everything like that, where they're not even doing custody hearings anymore. They're just automatically giving 50-50 custody. But in more conservative states, they're going to lean more towards the mother. Now, your paternity may be established, but they're going to lean more towards giving primary custody to the mother.
Mm-hmm. And I definitely think that our laws pertaining to divorce need to be changed. I don't know a ton about it, but I do know a little bit about it. And I do see that a lot of times fathers don't always get the ideal situation or fair part of the deal. I also know both men and women can be very mean and evil and petty during divorces. And a lot of times people are not fair to each other. I've seen it from both sides. I think that we have to remember the reasons why some of these laws or why precedence has been what is what it is. Women typically, because of this patriarchal society that you guys have set up, have been the ones
who do the domestic and child rearing, the bulk of it.
The child rearers and the ones responsible for taking care of the children, the taking care of the home. And even to this day, if we're honest, if men are honest, men still think that way. And we think that way, even in a marriage. You know, even if when people are married, 9 times out of the 10, the child will be with the mom. Like of my married friends who are mothers, 9 times out of 10, the child is with the mom. The child is being bathed by the mom, put to bed. The mom
taking the doctor's appointments.
The mom is the one who is doing the parent-teacher conferences. The mom is the one who calls the teacher. The mom is the one helping with the homework. The mom is the one getting the groceries. The mom is the one getting the clothes. The mom is the one preparing the lunches. The mom is the one paying the field trip forms. The mom is the one who takes on the lead of raising the children in the home. And that's how men have set it up. That's how society has set that up. So we have to remember that, you know, men set this up, that women are seen as the primary caretakers for the children. That's inside of a marriage, and it doesn't change because the marriage is now over. So we have to remember, and where these things come from. We have to also remember why women got alimony in the first place. And even to this day, and I said this on a show that I was on before, and the guys didn't want to believe it. But if you go look up, you will see that women have always and continue to be at the greater financial
detriment.
Detriment after a divorce. This is fact. Over time, women have a harder time recuperating income, and they have a much lower income and after divorce. This is fact. You can look it up. And it's been like that for a long time. So this is why we have alimony. It's not like, oh, you get special treatment just because you're a woman. There are reasons why there's alimony. Now, should these rules be changed and should custody laws be changed? I agree. I completely agree. But our question was about like marriage. And I think that, I know, JT, you were talking about how society treats marriage. There's no incentive. Actually, I think there are some incentives to stay married in society, but I get what you're saying. Society just kind of doesn't celebrate marriage, you know, and I agree with that. But my thinking is, okay, especially as believers or as Christians, or even if you're not a Christian, but you're somebody who values marriage, then what do we do to make sure that, okay, yeah, you go and see your attorney and you plan for the divorce just in case there's a divorce, because it's happening. You plan for the worst case scenario. How are we planning to stay married? Like, are men doing that? You know, I know a lot of the Black manosphere men they have told me, well, I don't have to train for marriage because I'm a man. I just protect and provide. That's what men do. So they are already going into a marriage like, I didn't have to learn to be a husband. You know, I just can show up. So, and men and women too. Women don't prepare for marriage sometimes. They prepare more for the wedding than they do the marriage. So I'm just like, yeah, I know what society has always been opposite. JT, I know you're a Christian. So, you know, like society has always been opposite the Bible and church and God's word. So that's nothing new. So it's like now as believers, or even if you're not a believer, but you're somebody who values marriage, what do we do to make sure that, yeah, okay, you're preparing, especially as a man, you're preparing legally, but that you can stand the test of time of a marriage?
Well, yeah. I think that, you know, I go back, I think that, you know, like I said, our society fell apart because men didn't always disdain from marriage. Actually, if you really want to look at it, you were not considered a man unless you were married and had kids. You know, that was kind of like a rite of passage thing. So, and I mean,
yeah, that's what
I mean, that was in the past, but going forward, we gotta find a way to get our communities back together. If we do that one house at a time, one family at a time, you know, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't like the promotion of division. Now, you know, just to be clear, I'm not against marriage. I'm just saying you need to know. I encourage men to find out what the risks are, because I mean, there's risk in everything that you do, but marriage is one thing that nobody actually really talks about the risk. There are a lot of benefits too. Because I mean, think about it. You know, people talking about, you know, I know my man talked about, you know, you giving out, you know, your freedom and playing in the field. But I mean, let's think about it like this, dude. When you get 45, 50, 55, do you think women want to see a 45, 50, 55-year-old guy in the club hitting on women? No, they don't. You don't want to see a 50-year-old guy at the junior college. You don't. There comes a time, and I mean, you know, that's stuff that you know you should be doing in your teenage years, in your 20s, you know. But part of maturing and becoming an adult is evolving your life, and you can't do the same thing at 50 that you're doing at 20. You're not evolving. You're actually mentally stuck, and you know. I like the manosphere guys. Some of the stuff I don't agree with. I don't agree with a lot of the extremism. But and I'll just leave it at that, you know, as far as those guys. But you got to evolve, and you got to work with somebody. And I think what it is, nobody's really having real hard conversations about relating to each other, working together, because you're gonna have to work together, especially Black people. We are at the bottom of the scale economically. Cost of living is this year is spiking. It's gonna take, you know, my mom used to tell me when I was a kid, it takes 2 incomes to make it. You need to work together. I mean, you know, we can talk all this, you know, you make 6 figures and the man is the only person that's supposed to work and stuff like that. But let's be realistic. Majority of the people make average salaries. Cost of living keeps going up, and you can barely afford to give milk to your kids. So you got to have your wife work.
Yeah.
Both got to buy groceries. Housing is expensive. Then in addition to that, people are going into debt like crazy because they see other people that may be better off financially than they are, and they're going on trips and stuff. And so then you start to envy the other people talking about, oh, you know what, it'd be nice to go on a trip. So now, you know, as a man, you know, I'm like, oh man, my wife's not happy. I got to go on a trip. So now I whip out the credit card, which puts us further into debt, in addition to the debt that I have from going to school, trying to better myself so I can, quote unquote, make a better living and earn more money. So, you know, it's an endless cycle. So you can't be a player all your life. At some point in time, you got.
We'll talk about the playerism next time.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I mean, nobody wants to be bound and unhappy, but you know, love should be fun. If you feel bounded with the person that you married the wrong one.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, Cannon wants to say something to you, JT, and then we're going to go ahead and close out this discussion. But I appreciate you so much, and I love your insight.
Okay.
Go ahead, Cannon.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say one thing that I've noticed over the years, especially with our generation specifically, and that I found to be very interesting, is like one of the things that he said about, I think he was saying it in response to Darwin saying that a lot of men are scared of marriage, and he was saying that it's not scared, is that they're being warned about the possible consequences or the possible you know, hits and losses that they can take, and you know, just kind of the issues in it. And I do agree with that I've seen, you know, the weight of marriage being really promoted, especially amongst men more specifically, because amongst women, like I say, we are kind of conditioned and taught to like desire marriage, whatever. But on the flip side, I do think that I've seen in our community a thread where there is a lot of hesitation around marriage because there's a lot of weight put on marriage. Like this this could happen. This gonna cause you this. This gonna mean all of these things. What I find interesting about that is I don't necessarily see the same weight in that arena or to that demographic apply when it comes to childbearing, like having children. It's like I don't see the same zeal and the same fear-mongering and the same caution to be careful, right? And be, and to put the same level of gravity when
That's
it comes to having children.
That's because it's no condom for marriage, and it's a condom for sex, and we like raw sex.
Jeez. What? Anyway, like
you get it? You don't get it? I get it.
Now, do you remember? You remember when we had the lockdown from the C-19?
Mm-hmm.
Remember when everything was locking down? They locked down those businesses. We couldn't go to the barbershops and beauty shops.
Mm-hmm.
You remember that?
Oh yeah.
I've seen 12 marriages in that time. These are just couples that just say, you know what, we're going to be locked down together. Then I'm choosing to be locked down for life. So we're not scared. Men are not scared of marriage.
I wasn't saying that you all were scared. I was saying
no. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I was saying
as far as the children, as far as the children and having children out of wedlock, yeah, that is a epidemic in our community. But I think what it is that I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm going to take a different tone than what everybody else does. I think the reason why we're having that is because we are pushing back our maturation. Because if you look at your grandparents, they got married really young.
Yeah.
We're getting married really old,
mm-hmm.
but our biology has not changed.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's not what I'm talking about, right? Because what you're saying is part of it, right? What you're saying is part of it. A lot of people that are getting married later are also holding off having children until later. But what I'm saying to you is that there is a thread in the community when it comes to placing gravity and importance on marriage versus childbearing. The ones who are waiting longer to get married, and they're also waiting longer to have kids and stuff like that. You have those. But what I'm saying is a lot of the same men or a lot of that same attitude or comments that you were having about just being more cautious about marriage, you will hear a lot of those same men say that, right? Like, I'm cautious to get married because if I get this gonna happen and that's gonna happen and all these other things. But in the same breath, if you would be like, but you had 3 kids with her. Oh, but that's kids.
Yeah.
What?
I see what you're saying.
And then it's coming from the mouth of the same men is what I'm saying, because the conversations that you're saying is being had, like the way you caution younger men, like think about this and think about that. I think enough older men are not also cautioning them. Like, think about who you're having children with. Think about what that's going to mean for your kids. Because like you said, you can get a divorce. You can get a divorce like you've never been married. And a lot of the things that you're saying, it can be a consequence, like as far as them not being able to see their kids and all other stuff. That could be a consequence with just having kids, right? Especially just having kids without having the marriage or any of those other things. So that can happen either way. But the thing you cannot divorce is having those kids and having a responsibility to have those kids. So I just always find it interesting that it's all this insight and thought and caution and being like, you get married, but it's just not the same attitude when it comes to having these kids. It's just really not. It's not the same attitude from what I said. Like I said, talking to the same man, they just don't even see it.
Let me apologize because I wasn't thoroughly clear. In these conversations, and I know you're not there, but that's kind of a given. We talked about that.
It's not a given. It's not.
We kind of teach getting married and having kids in that order. We don't teach, well, you shouldn't get married, but you go ahead and have all the kids that you want. No. We talk about you really need to watch, who you having kids with. one of the things I really advocate is meeting the other person's family early. Like we usually wait until we get vested and get all in our feelings and stuff like that. We wait down the line, then we bring the person to the family.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, when you go overseas, like in the Filipino communities, if a girl likes you, she'll bring you to to meet her family early. And
Big facts.
I didn't like it at first, but I'm an advocate of it because you don't, when you marry somebody, you don't just marry them, you marry the whole family, and the same thing goes vice versa. So you really need to know what you're getting into.
Yeah.
You know, you need to know what a crackhead in the family is and how many they got.
What habits they have, and yeah, I agree. And it used to be like that in our culture. One of a lady, she actually watches the show, and she's in our group. Cheryl Rainey, she was talking to me about how a long time ago, you know, that was in it, not even that long ago, maybe like another generation ago, that was what women were looking for. You know, they were looking for what type of family the man came from. I know I look for that now. It says a lot. Now, I will still judge a guy based off of him, but you know, how you were raised, your family, that tells a lot about you. You know,
it does.
You know, everybody has a different kind of story or situation, but generally speaking, your family says a lot about you. Same thing for women. Your family kind of says a lot about you, or like what you've been taught, and then what you're getting yourself into, what kind of family is this? My mom used to say, be careful who you marry, you know, because your kids are going to pick up their habits and their spirits, and you don't know genetically what they're going to, you know, inherit. So yeah, I like that. Thank you, JT. Thank you very much for joining us.
Yep.
And before I go, I'd like to say, anybody that's in the chat that has not hit the like button, go ahead, hit the like button, because you know this group of people right here, they're having a really good discussion, and we really want that to circle around. So hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the bell button, and set the bell to all, so that way you'll be notified of every time they post a video.
Good
Thank
advice.
you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, JT. Much love. All right, ladies. Let's go ahead and move on. I would usually wrap it up. Did anybody have something really quick that they wanted to say?
Oh, I did. I wanted to say that in rural Black America, we still meeting people family early. I met my husband. We started dating in October. Yeah, he had been to my house by November. Like you know, you come from a certain set of people. Yeah, I agree with everything he said about that. And it may be old fashioned to some, but yeah, a lot of two things I tell people in therapy: life history factors, things that people grew up seeing and what they've been exposed to, but most importantly, lifestyle factors, how we live, what we do, and where we come from influence our behavior. So I needed to see the behavior. He needed to see the behavior, so that I know what I was getting into. You know, so I totally agree with that.
I was gonna tell you, Miss Jovo, side note too. I did look up some of the statistics and some of the information, and it does seem like that across urban areas and rural areas, that marriages did decline more, or that marriages are less common in urbanized areas, the more urbanized areas, than it is the rural areas.
That's true.
Y'all better move out here and buy some acres. Move out here in the country. Grow you a garden and come on now.
But, but the other thing that I was going to add to it before, because we were talking about what are we teaching our sons versus daughters and different things like that, I really just wanted to say that the main thing that I try to make sure that I instill in my children, regardless to gender, is a strong sense of self, right? And a strong sense of confidence and that type of thing. Because then I feel like that'll carry them through no matter what experiences that they have. Because it's a lot of things when it comes to those outside influences that I don't think you can like teach them. Like I can't teach my daughter through her first heartache. Like she has to go through the first heartache, right? She has to go through those experiences in order to make her choices, decisions, to shape her view, whatever's going to happen. But I feel like as long as in the midst of all of that, she has a strong sense of who she is, then that'll carry her with her decision making and her choices and through all of those things a lot better than being like, well, don't let this happen and don't do that. Like, I mean, you can do those things, but like I say, society's just changes so much. People's behavior changes so much that sometimes I think you say like there are some common threads, right? That you can say ain't nothing new under the sun, right? That you can say that. But the thing is that there's still going to be certain behaviors that me and my generation, I may interpret it a certain way, and it may be viewed totally different in her generation. But the one thing that can remain steady, like I said, is how she feels about herself, how well she knows herself, and her confidence and her self-esteem. Like, those are the things that can carry no matter what the situation is. So I think those are the most important things, like more important than, like I said, all that other arbitrary stuff. Because I feel like everything else falls in line and flows from there.
Okay. All right. Well,
Ditto.
Thank you all so much for you who are just joining us. Welcome to the ladies' room, and we have great conversation about everything from marriage, dating, and relationships to parenting and societal issues. So if you're joining us, go ahead, hit the like button, subscribe, and just know that we talk. We also want to hear from you guys as well. So, let us know your comments and thoughts in the comment section. We're going to go ahead and move on to the next conversation. This is a heavy one, y'all. It's heavy for me, but I'm not sure if I'm saying his name correctly, but Rejee Black or Rejee Black. It's a tragedy. For those of you all who don't know, he is a young Black man around the age of 44, who was a nurse anesthesiologist in, I believe, Maryland, who went on Facebook Live and shared how he had just shot his ex-wife in the head, and also he was on his way to shoot. No, I'm sorry. He had just shot his ex-girlfriend in the head, and he was on his way to shoot his ex-wife. And he did so right before killing himself. I have the video ready to play, but I also want to be sensitive to the families involved.
Okay, I can't hear you, Cannon.
Oh, I was on mute.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was on mute.
I think Ashley.
Yep. I think we're having a few technical issues.
Yes, most definitely.
Come here, Dave. You want to say hi to the peoples? You get one chance to say hi to the peoples. This is an intermission.
Because we heard her. I heard her.
Say hi to the people.
Hi, gorgeous. How are you?
Okay,
good.
You satisfied now? Okay. I'm pretty sure Ashley coming back in. Look at his face.
Darwin, don't even do it. Don't even do it with the hard dad face, because off camera is juice boxes and she melts my heart. Come on, you right here with the stone face. Y'all do that. The dads be fronting, and then it's like
big front.
She don't play.
I know you done been to some tea parties. No, you been to some tea parties.
No, I don't drink tea.
Ashley.
All right, y'all. I'm so sorry for that.
That's okay.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and play the video just for context. I did want to talk about some of the details. Obviously, we don't know all the details, right? But I think in our conversation about it, I think we should know whatever details are out there. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and play the video, very short video.
For everybody out there that supported me and really knows what's going on, thank you all. I've been going through a custody battle. I've been going through having my ex-wife say I molested my children and all kinds of craziness. Been fighting for custody for 3 years. So, you know, shit has been real crazy. What's up, Oliver? You know about this. Going through it with my ex-wife, blah, blah, blah. So, me, start dating somebody new, and she got pregnant. And, we got in the fight. First thing she does, threatening that she's going to do the same thing. You're never going to see your kids, blah, blah, blah. It's the holidays, man. I don't have no family, nothing. Anyway, I just did something crazy, man. I just shot my ex-girlfriend in the head, yo. Um, Felt like a dream. Like, I never thought I would be that guy. Um, I can't go to prison, so the person that really started my depression and all of this is my ex-wife. So she next, and then I'm going to do myself too. But I just wanted to say this to people. Don't play with people's emotions, man. Don't lie on these men. Oh, here's my ex-wife right here.
All right, so that was right before he shot and killed his ex-wife, and then turned the gun on himself and killed himself. That was very heavy for me when I saw that. And personally, when I saw it, I had a set of thoughts, but I want to hear from you guys first. What do you all think about that? What came to mind? What do you want to say, Jovo, Mrs. Jovo?
In the line of work that I do, I see this play out a few times in my career. Unfortunately, either with an act of violence, either with overdose on substances. This is a lot. I think there is a lack of. I think there was a lack of self-awareness on his part, and I think that we, again, in our culture, with him being an African American man, I often say this a lot. We normalize a lot of our trauma, and what people don't realize is that, and I'm not sure how long he was married to his first wife. I'm not sure how the allegations came about him abusing his child. But what we don't sometimes realize is that when there is some sort of disturbance in the family, or when there's some sort of break or separation going on, that's trauma. That is something that needs to be addressed before things get worse. One of the things that I hope that we get out of this incident and some similar incidents is that we need to get help and support before things get worse. We have a tendency to we don't treat our mental health lives like children treat the schoolhouse in case of a fire. Everybody, we went to school, they had fire drills, they had storm drills. We knew what to do when certain things would pop off at school. Even now at my daughter's school, they actually teach little ones what to do if a shooter comes into the school. And they have a whole drill. She explained it to me. We train kids at an early age how to, this is what happens if the school catches on fire. Bell rings, here's the fire drill. We have a tendency when it comes to mental health to only really get help when the fire is blazing and things are burning and things are falling apart. I don't know if they got therapy. I don't know a lot about, the background of this guy, his family, but I hope that if we don't get anything from this, we need to stop trying to treat, or manage our mental health when it's on fire and everything's falling apart. If you anticipate that you and your spouse are not going to work out, or if these allegations first came to him, I wish he would have told himself, or somebody would have told him, hey, this is something you need to talk to somebody about. Or, hey, these are some resources to help you through this situation. We have a tendency to let things fester and then they get out of control. This is one of those situations where it definitely got out of control. You know, I think that had he gotten the right resources and the right help, this could have all been prevented. Also, too, if you remember, a few weeks ago, we did a segment on one of our shows about domestic violence and how oftentimes we minimize and we blow over some of these things that men and women say to each other, and we don't hold them accountable. I think this guy, prior to this video, he probably was crying out for help and nobody maybe took him seriously. You know, even with some of the stuff I see on social media with the manosphere and with some of the things that these guys actually say, as it relates to women, they take, you know, with the misogyny and everything else, they take it to a whole nother level of we want to see women suffer or we want to see women do X, Y, and Z. Though, to me, those are red flags. Why would you want to see harm done to somebody, or better yet, done to yourself? To me, those are red flags, and I think that we need to stop minimizing that and calling it exactly what it is.
Mm-hmm.
This is not just a guy who was just mad because his ex did him wrong. Like, we're talking about strong allegations of him sexually abusing his own child. You know, that causes a rift in the family. So, you know, those are my thoughts on that. I watched that video twice. I watched his emotion. I watched some of the comments going up on the screen. People were kind of in disbelief. People were alarmed. We need to start being alarmed when we know a friend is going through a bad breakup, when we know a friend is about on the edge of divorce or something like that, or if we notice certain patterns in a person's behavior that we haven't seen before. You know, we need to start having the conversation, like before the fire breaks out, per se. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Mr. Strovo. And we also have Mr. Tony with us. Thank you,
What's
Tony.
Hey,
up?
Tony.
What's going on? Sorry I'm late to the discussion.
Oh, no
But
problem. No problem. We just started a conversation about the Rejee. I believe I spelled his name wrong. I'm sorry for that. I think it's Rejee or Rejee Black. We just started this conversation.
the video you sent me the other day.
hmm
Yeah, so I just wanted to gather everyone's thoughts about it. Thank you, Jovo, for sharing. Who else would like to chime in on this?
Yeah, I wanted to call out a few key things because it's some things about things that Miss Jovo said that stood out to me, right? One of them was control. I heard that word. That word definitely stuck out for me. Another one of those words was or sentences is crying out for help. And that also stuck out to me what she said. I think that part of the problem when I watched the video and then when I researched first of all, when I watched the video, it already struck me in a certain way. Because for one thing, a lot of the conversations that people are having are just taking this man's word for everything that he's saying. Right? The problem with that is that he positioned himself as a victim after he victimize somebody else. He then positioned himself as a victim. That's my first flag to say, okay, so what are the things that he's actually saying, right? And so when he does that, now I'm looking and I'm saying, how much of what he's saying can I even trust? I can't go to the people who he victimized to find out what their side of the story is because he didn't give them an opportunity to give their side of the story before he took their lives. Mm-hmm. So I have not been able to verify through any news source or anything like that he had any allegations against him about molesting his children. But what I have been able to verify is that he definitely had protective orders that his ex-wife attempted to get, that she was denied, that she was not able to get. And I will read exactly what was in those protective orders. So in one of the orders, she said he threatened to kill me with a gun. That's what she said when she tried to get one of those protective orders. In another protective order, she said he has pushed, shoved, threatened, and bit me in the past. I am afraid of him in his anger and I do not want him to know where I live. He has access to weapons. And she also claimed in the order that he is suicidal. In another order, she said he told her, I am coming for you. And she said, I am terrified because I do not know what he is capable of. I do not feel like I am safe, and I feel that my life is in danger. These are the things that she stated in the protective orders that were denied to her. So when you say crying out for help, yeah, somebody was absolutely crying out for help and it was ignored, right? It got ignored. It wasn't taken seriously. The cries for help that actually took place. When we talk about control, soon as I saw this situation, we see this every day. And what's really frustrating to me right now is I keep talking about these rewrites of history. And it's really weird to watch things in the moment and to watch us not want to call a spade and pretend like we don't see what we're seeing. So I've seen a crop up or increase in like a denial of domestic violence, right? And those things that are happening and trying to turn it into something else. This is the textbook example of what domestic violence looks like, right? I'm looking at this man. I looked it up and I saw, and I Ms. Jovo, I know you the professional, the mental health professional, but I looked it up and I found an actual layout that has the 8 stages of domestic homicide. The first stage is the pre-relationship history. Does that person have a history of domestic abuse? Does he have a history of coercive control or stalking and different things like that? That's the first stage, the first red flag. You can kind of determine that this kind of crime is going to take place. The second part is the early stage of the relationship. Like the relationship is kind of sped up. It happens very quickly. I'm going to assume that this relationship with the new woman could have possibly been sped up, considering the fact that his ex-wife took those protective orders out against him as recently as last year. So this other woman that he's with, that he got pregnant, they probably haven't been in a relationship that long. I'm just saying. That's my assumption. Then you have the actual relationship, which includes some type of domestic abuse or coercive control. Like I said, I don't have the new girlfriend's side of the story because she's no longer with us to tell us what happened. But
Yeah.
we don't know if that was happening in a relationship. But then what happens is that there's a trigger, and it's usually something happens that threatens that person's sense of control. So maybe if he has a history of violence, then I'm going to assume that usually when people have a history of domestic violence and things like that, they do it to multiple people. So if he have a history that his ex-wife is saying that he has done things to her, then I'm going to assume that that's maybe something he could have even been doing to the next girlfriend. And maybe she threatened to leave him or something like that. And he sensed a loss of control, right? And so he had to, so next what happened was the escalation. So that's now he has to gain back that sense of control that she made him lose. Next, after the escalation, is that now he has a change of thinking, which is now he has decided to murder. Like, that's the decision. Not going to talk him out of it. That's what he's going to do. He's about to take her out. She made him lose control. He got to get control back. He's going to do it by taking that person out. That's what he did. Then you have the planning stage, which they may get weapons, do all of those other things. And then you actually have the homicide. And one of the things that stuck out to me, like even without having all of that background and all that context, it's just so crazy to me how you can see a man murder 2 separate women and then still feel like he could possibly be the victim and not see that this is obviously an abusive person. You murder 2 separate people, right? And then you make excuses for it. You calmly and coolly make excuses for it before you murder the second person. And then considering that in one of her protective orders, she said, he told me he was coming for me. And then at the end of the video, you heard he said, today is the day. He did tell her that.
I was
He
going to
told
point
her
that
that.
out. Yeah.
Absolutely. So what
So
I'm
it
saying,
shows that he has shown some aggressive behaviors and some threatening behaviors, and he has had this plan. This was not, completely just
out of control and emotional
yeah,
and
like
no.
yeah, and so yeah, I one of my thoughts when I saw this was, my heart went out for the ladies because they were in their 40s, young, pretty young. I mean, who wants to die in their 40s, right? And their lives were taken from them. That was saddening. And I was sad for him too, because I could see that he was troubled and I could see that he had some mental health issues. He had this custody battle. I'm sure that weighed heavily on him. Supposedly there were some accusations. I never found any record of that. I read that it wasn't true that he was accused of molesting his child. If that happened, I can imagine that taking a big toll on you. Um, then he had this hospital suit. You know, he had actually been demoted from an anesthesiologist to being a nurse, a general nurse practitioner. And supposedly it's because he had ratted out a colleague about them hiding drugs. Now, I don't know if that's true, but you know, this is that's something that happened. He was being upstanding and spoke up, and it backfired on him. He was treated unfairly. If that's true, I can certainly understand the weight, right? So my heart went out to him too. You know, like I saw a troubled person that, you know, did something that is really unexcusable. But it could have been, like Jovo said, it could have been prevented. So I thought about mental health. I also think that people have to be careful with what we believe. Cannon, you mentioned this, you know, this custody battle. You know, first off, people forget that like his kids were with him when he did this. They were in the car, so he had access to his kids. You know, the narrative, I think, from a lot of Black manosphere where these women were trying to keep his kids from him, but the kids were with him in the car. He had access to his children. And then you also have to wonder, well, why would they want to keep the children from him? You know, one woman can say maybe that's not true. Two women, I don't know. Like I don't know. I give them all the benefit of the doubt. You know, and it doesn't matter now because he's killed them all, right? He's killed them both, including himself. But I noticed that a lot of people painted him as the victim, and this became about how women need to change because they're making men do these things. But it's like we don't even know all the details about the situation. And at the end of the day, you know, he's lost his life. He took his life. Those women lost their lives. And we have children now who don't have parents. And so I just don't think there's any excuse for it.
Yeah, I would feel sorry for him if he took his life first. Then I would feel sorry.
Let me clarify, because when I talk about mental health and I talk about cries for help and the analogy I used with the fire alarm, let me just say this. And I'm going to go back to what I said initially. The moment that somebody maybe witnessed the abuse or knew something was going on, the moment that the first red flag was thrown on the play, that's when the help needs to be introduced. Like I said, in our society, we have a very, very bad problem with wanting to learn how to put out a fire when everything is on fire and falling apart. So who needed mental health help in this situation? Everybody, right down to the children. Everyone. Everyone. We normalize, and the manosphere is very good at doing this. They normalize this into thinking that women are these villains and that we want to keep men from their kids and things like that. No, that's not the situation. And then on the flip side of that, society is also, especially for me, because I feel very strongly about this. The minute someone like me says, okay, mental health help, this is necessary, this is important, that is not my way of justifying somebody's behavior. Right. Okay. Them women didn't lose their lives. He took their lives from them. Let's just be clear on that. Okay. I understand that. However, I tell anybody who, and I've done this, of course, y'all know what I do for a living, advising people that when you're going through a divorce, when you're going through violence in the home, and it could be, you know, the children being violent towards parents, mom being violent towards dad, just people being violent in general, a swift change in the home, you know, certain allegations being presented, like in this situation. This is not normal stuff. This is trauma. When we hear that word, we think of somebody bleeding. We think of you know, full blown, this glamorized picture of what society and television and media has showed us in terms of trauma. These things are trauma. Period. Point blank. Okay. I mean, I got really strong views on, especially in our culture, on what we've been exposed to in terms of trauma. Living in a housing project where 3-4 days out of the week, you hearing gunshots
Mm.
For some of us, oh, that's just normal. Or I grew up here, that's what it was. Trauma. That's what it is. And people deal with trauma and they handle trauma in different ways. When Cannon was speaking about the education and the stages and the phases of homicidal behavior, I was thinking also of how it contrasts but yet compares with the suicide protocol I have to do for a living with individuals who make allegations of wanting to take their own life or take the lives of other people. All of these things, red flags. That's why with some of the manosphere stuff and then wanting to do harm to women, and then some of them turning around talking about how they're worthless and they don't know if they can find anybody, red flags. It's all. We just need to learn how to notice these things before the full building is engulfed in flames, if you will, with the analogy that I'm using. So, I mean, I'm not dishonoring or discounting the fact that these women were victims of homicidal and just plain out sick behavior. I'm not discounting that. But if we're gonna look at the bigger picture, I think it's important for us to see where we can learn from each point. And I think the first time that he was violent or spoke violent towards them or aggressive towards them, the first time something popped off that was not a norm or that put somebody's life in danger, red flag. That's what I'm saying. We just need to know
All
how to
right.
recognize it.
All right. Let's hear from our guest. Tony, what do you think about this?
Well, I mean, you guys pretty much covered it all. Is my audio okay, by the way?
Yeah,
Is
you're
my
good.
audio good? Okay, cool. You pretty much covered it all. I think everybody in this situation, well, specifically the male himself needed some mental help. And I'm not really sure of the psyche of the women. I personally don't believe that everybody needs mental help. I believe that most people do. But we really don't know. We definitely know he needed some mental help in that situation. And I think this goes to show why protection is important to females and why females need a male influence in the house, because I think that situation would have went totally different had the woman had a powerful male figure in the household. And that's pretty much it. That's my take on it.
One thing I wanted to point out, and I want to hear from you too, darling, but one thing that I wanted to point out was that, he made that comment. He says, I have no family, you know, and that struck out to me because we hear a lot in the Black manosphere about women dying alone, and here's a Black man who I think is relatable to a lot of other Black men, not just Black men, but just men in general, who feel alone, for one reason or the other. And, and this is no excuse for his behavior. But I think the focus in the social media groups, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, even, has been 15 women or upgrading men. And there's a lot of friction, and we're fighting, and we're pointing the finger, and we're not fighting what needs to be fought. Like, we're not fighting for each other, we're fighting each other. And this man is a man that felt alone for one reason or the other, and it's like we let these things fester until they become Facebook News and CNN News, or ABC News. And I just wanted to point that out. Like, that statement, among several other statements he said, really stuck out to me. And it just angered me that the response from a lot of other YouTubers were, well, women need to learn a lesson about this. Women need to stop playing with men's emotions. Women need to stop keeping their kids from these men. And granted, if these women were unfairly trying to keep these children from him, they were downright wrong. If there wasn't a safety, and it sounded like there was a safety concern, because let's be honest, like, if I'm a mom, I'm not a mom, and maybe this is unfair, but I'm picturing myself in this situation. If I'm a mom and I'm no longer dating the child's father, and he's threatening me, I'm not going to feel, even if he treats my child like wonderfully, I'm not necessarily going to feel comfortable with my child being with them. And I don't, maybe that's unfair, but it seems sensible to me, like
That's not
there's
unfair.
so many
If
reasons.
there's
So it's
domestic violence, that is not unfair.
so, we don't know the whole issues with the custody battle. If he was the victim in that, they were dead wrong, right? And but it hurts me that that is what became the focus of Black Manosphere. Oh, look at what women are doing to men. It's like, no, look at what people are doing to people, and look at what we're doing and going through and having to do it by ourselves. And look at what we're sweeping under the rug and treating as normal when we need to be treating it, like Jovo said, as trauma, and dealing with the things that are deep in our heart, the feeling alone, the loss of a job, the demotion, whatever he was going through, could have been addressed so much differently. And with the ownership of him, but also with the support of people who loved him, So it's just a sad, sad situation. Darn, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, it's unfortunate what happened, and I just want to just touch on another perspective of it, but it has to do with control, right? Um, I think everybody loses control at some point in their life. Whether now how they act when they lose that control is totally different for each person. Some people might start smoking cigarettes. Some people might eat excessively. Some people might sleep all day. Some people might take things out on their loved ones. Some people might get violent. Some people might start cursing. It's different ways that people lose control. And unfortunately, one of the way that he lost control was or this horrific act. And I think it's just as simple as that. Like, people need to start managing their control. And I think everybody, even if they don't need mental help, they need mental conditioning from time to time. Like, they just need to touch on and just go over what their life is looking like at some point, and sit down and ask themselves, like, am I okay? And people around, I know it's in this world, people don't want to get too involved with everybody's business, but I think we need to start, just, if you're seeing somebody that's looking down and depressed, just ask them, what's wrong? Can I help? And especially friends and family. And it's not about, I don't want to pry in their business. It's about, hey, I want to be safe too. Like, if you got friends and family that you think that's capable of doing these things, you might want to check in on them, because you might be a victim of their horrific act. You don't know what they're capable of. They might be at a family reunion and just start shooting up the place. You never know until something happens to you, and then you looking like, oh, that person's just crazy, but you saw it coming. And so I just think it's unfortunate. My wife is big on that. She don't care who it is. She addressing everything, family members, friends. She do not care what's going on and who it is. She's, and I commend her for that, because she steps in, does the right thing no matter who it is, and that's what we all need to do. It doesn't matter if it's a friend, your father, your child. You have to step in and address these things before something bad happens. And I don't know if he had friends or family. I don't know what he displayed to those people or whatever the case may be, but it's just unfortunate that he lost control, and by him losing control, took him there. And my condolences to the family, those kids, and so that's just my thought on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. The thing is, I just want to add, and it's the last thing I'm gonna put to it because I'm just over it. But the last thing that I want to add is that at the end of the day, I've seen abusive people. Specifically, I've seen abusive men in action. Out of every single abusive man that I have ever personally witnessed, known in my entire life, one common thread exists between all of them. None of them take accountability for what they do. It's always an excuse. They downplay it. It's always an excuse. It's always a reason. It's always the other person's fault, and it's all of those other things. And I think that that's kind of part of the problem where, like I said, we view some of those things as a loss of control. But if you look at that video, that man wasn't out of control. He was totally in control on what he was about to do. The shooting between his ex-wife and his girlfriend was an hour. His children was 4 and 5 years old. He drove in his car with his 4 and 5 year old children strapped in car seats, I'm sure, in his car for an hour, just to then took the time to sit there and calmly record a video trying to give himself cover or make himself a victim, right? Because like he said, he knew he was finna take himself out, so he wanted to have the last say on how he was going to be viewed and what that was going to look like. And then he went and made good on the threats that he had already been making. Like I say, all of that is classic case of an abusive person. All of it. And the problem is that, like I say, we downplay it in the community. We ignore it. We make excuses for it. You know, like that is, none of this stuff is new. This is textbook stuff of how we frame domestic violence against women. What did you do? What's the first thing people say to a woman that's been beat on or abused? Well, what did you do? Did you make him mad? Why you do? Well, just try this and try it. We always do that. So I'm just looking at it, and none of this stuff that we're doing, it may take on a slightly different little form, but we still doing the same thing. And we keep talking about we need to end it. We're not going to end it until, like I say, we look at it and we call a spade, and we start addressing those things up front. And like even to Darwin's point, what he said about, he said, you know, if you think somebody can't, the problem is nobody thinks anybody's capable of that. Nobody thinks that. They see all of those red flags and they ignore it. Oh, they're not really finna do that. Oh, you know what? Because like I said, a lot of those times, those people are calm, cool, and collected. Those people have two faces a lot of times. Oh, well, that must have not really been that bad. No, that couldn't have really been this. That's what happens. Most people are not out here just like, ooh, my brother violent. He be beating on people. Like, people don't do that, but for the most part. So that's what we need to address. We need to, like I say, when we need to address a lot of those behaviors, and we need to call them out for what they are. We need to stop downplaying it. We need to stop making excuses for it. We need to stop giving cover to it. That's what we need to stop doing. Because at the end of the day, like I said, when I saw that video and I saw that man talking, I've seen that. I've seen that many times. And it was down to a loss of control. But it wasn't a loss of emotional control. It was a loss of control over another person. And then trying to exert that control in any way you possibly can, which is what happens. And I
want to point out too that most people that have these mental disturbances and who have a history of violent behavior and they are abusive towards others, they not these people who got lives that are just, you know, out of control and not have some sort of structure to them. They're just like with me working with people who are addicted to drugs, you know. These are not just people who are homeless living under a bridge somewhere or living on the street or living in a what society would deem as a crack house and they got a problem with drugs. Most people that I've served, I've dealt with business owners, law enforcement agents, corporate America, people who work in the medical field, people who work in the mental health field, lawyers. These are people who they have careers like I got it we're talking about now. They manage what we would deem as a normal life. Um, I think Canon is really educating us, and I see it, and I educate clients every day on the fact that the best way for us to provide help and resources in these situations is that our community has to be accepted of the fact that we need to be educated more on mental health and mental wellness. I think that's what it goes back to. You know, does everybody need to learn coping skills? Some of us came from homes where parents taught coping and we were taught how to deal with, you know, certain things in certain ways. And, you know, how Darwin may deal with something, Ashley might deal with it differently. You know, I think some of us have been taught healthy coping skills, whether it's going to the gym, whatever. But a lot of us, we haven't been taught. And we go with what we know. And it's just this generational like with the substance use and the violent behavior, and domestic violence, and this verbal abuse that we need to address in the Black community. It's cussing each other out and using words like people use knives, and just throwing them around, these four-letter words. I had a friend who joked about, I think it was one of her daughter's friends, joked about how going into the military wasn't rough for her, with them, yelling commands and stuff, because everybody at her house yelled and all they did was cuss each other out. We use humor as a defense mechanism to not really deal with what's going on. So 1 minute on the internet, people jawing and laughing about these things. And then, the next minute, something like this happens, and it's like, man, we need to take things more seriously. If we're gonna take it seriously, we need to have the uncomfortable conversations on things that we shouldn't joke about. So I wanted to point that out as well.
Thank you. Fellas, do you all have anything that you like to add to the conversation before we close out? Nothing in particular?
Nah.
Okay.
Let's get back in a happy place.
Yeah, because that is not a happy place, not a happy place. But I did want to share the suicide hotline number. If you are thinking of suicide, if it's a slight thought, call here for help. It's 1-800-273-8255. I would also like to share a resource for therapy. It's called Talkspace. Okay, and this is for online therapy. Some of you may not know or not feel that you have the time in your life, or you don't know how to allot it into your life to go and sit down and talk to someone. There's online therapy options online. There are also therapy options specifically for people of color, for women, for men. So I encourage you all to just to seek that out. Get help. There's nothing wrong with therapy. We all need somebody to talk to. I don't care how strong you are. I don't care if you're a man or a woman. Like, everybody has emotions, right? And it's not about being weak. It's just about dealing with whatever your traumas are, whatever your emotions are, whatever your thoughts are. It might be something that you need just to vent, just to have a confidential place to talk to someone about. For whatever your reason is, get the help that you need, professional help and personal help. Seek somebody out that cares for you.
Ashley, I also wanted to point out too that if you check with your employer, those of you all who are not self-employed, check with your employer for employee assistance programming. A lot of times there are free therapy sessions that your employer has already prepaid for. So whether it's, this is a rough time of year for people too. We're in the holiday season. So, and for some of us, this is just not a happy time. You might be grieving. You might be grieving due to, loss of family members around this time of the year, the stress of the holiday season. You might even find yourself in a situation like this family, where they have lost these loved ones due to this act of violence. Check with your employer. Some states have what they call community service boards or state mental health. I know a lot of people are not fans per se of what the state might provide in terms of mental health, but there are actually a lot of qualified clinicians and therapists that work for the state that will actually be able to assist you at no cost at all. And if you do not know how to tap into those type of resources and you just need help in doing that, hit me up at mosleyjavonda@gmail.com. I will help you free of charge, because that's what I do. I'm a help person. That's my calling.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. And I know a lot of people, I was saying, you may want to seek some help out. Most of us may feel alone, but we're not alone. There's somebody who cares. But if you really think that there's nobody who cares, you just never know. Talk to a pastor, talk to somebody. Just try to get help. Because, we don't have to do this alone. We're not made to do life alone. But thank you, Javonda. Thank you, everybody, for your thoughts. We're going to move on, try to get to a happier place in the show. And then hopefully in the next 25 minutes tops, we'll wrap the show up. But we have another real good topic, so I don't know if that's going to work. But the next topic is, what do women offer men in relationships? This question was inspired by a video that someone shared with me, where a woman tells, people flat out that she has nothing to offer. And I want to go ahead and play the video, and I want to find out what you guys think about it. All right. So let me go ahead and share my screen.
So the point of me making this live was basically I realized today that I have nothing to offer a man. Nothing. And I feel like it took, number one, it took me 32 years to realize it because I just found that out today. So I was today years old when I realized it. And then it took me a lot of pride swallowing to be able to admit it. I'm going to tell you why I feel the way I feel. This is not based off anyone else. This is only based off myself. But I just wanted to share it just in case it may help somebody else. I feel like I don't have anything to offer to a man because a man asked me what I had to offer him. And it was the way he asked that made me realize that I don't. He simply stated, I realize that you're single, but tell me what would I benefit from having you as my woman? Now, outside of the basics, like, oh, I look nice, I can cook, I work, I didn't have nothing else to offer. And the reason I realized that I did it is because I got to thinking about myself. And all I've been doing for so many years is just working and taking care of kids. I don't know necessarily what I'm into, so there goes hobbies. I'm not necessarily sure my feminine level of energy because majority of my relationships I wore the pants. So how can you, as a woman, offer to be a woman to a man if you've never fully been a woman? I am a woman because I'm a female, but I'm talking about like actually be a woman, like to a man. I've never experienced that, so I don't know what that feels like. So I can't honestly say that I have anything to offer as far as a woman outside of just being a woman. So that means all I really do have to offer is some pussy because I'm a woman and we have one. That's really not enough. I can't honestly say I can offer you a nurturing environment because I'm too frustrated about the children that I have and the lack of help that I have with them. So it's like I can't necessarily be so nurturing to you when I'm frustrated at the amount of nurturing that I'm already doing. So therefore, I know I can't offer you that. I can offer cooking for you, but then to me, it comes at a price because if you're coming and you're sitting and you're eating my food and you're not providing any of it, I'm going to feel away. So now I'm offering you bitterness. That's not anything a man wants. Why would you want a bitter female? Well, I'm bitter because of my own merits. So it's not your job to fix the bitterness, it's my job to fix. As much as I want a man to come to me ready, able to provide, work, and handle himself, I think that me as a female, I need to have my emotions in check because if a man wants peace, I don't have any because I'm frustrated. I'm bitter, I'm emotional, I'm upset. So I made this video because today I realized that I don't have anything to offer a man.
All right. So I want to know what you all think. What do you all think? Well, what do you think about the video, but also answer the question, what do women offer men in relationships? Who likes to go first?
I just want to say, bless that woman. Bless that woman. She's definitely an inspiration to some that may not realize that they, what they do and what they do not. If they do bring stuff to the table, maybe it would bring to light what it is that they actually feel like they do bring, and the ones that don't realize that they don't. And that's where the healing process begins, just knowing that you don't. And it's like, okay, well, now what can I do to improve that? It's not to be like I don't and then just go about your business doing what you're doing. It's about improvement. So I think that's the first step, that the fact that she that she was brave enough to say publicly that she don't bring anything to the table. And the fact that she cooks is something. I think that's that's an additive added to that. But like she said, she's gonna bring bitterness with it. It kind of cancels out. So if you're looking for top notch, I think you should bring top notch with you. So
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. All right, what do you think? Darren, what do you think? Long pause.
Yeah, it's a lot of things, a lot of stuff I want to call her, but I'm gonna be sensitive to her right now. I think I'm gonna talk about what she said first. I think she lacks confidence. She has low self-esteem. She might do have some bitterness. I don't think she's been validated at all in life by no man she ever messed with. Because if she says she has no value, period, like with anybody she dated, she has kids with a guy, and she doesn't even have value as in being a mother. But she says she takes all she do is take care of kids and work. So that's value right there. She's taking care of kids. So I don't know why she can't see that. Maybe because the dudes that she had kids with is just steady tearing her down, which is causing her to think she's nothing. But I don't know how kids are living. But even if she is only offering coochie, then maybe she's only messing with dudes that want coochie. So that's something that she's offering, right? I'm just not understanding that unless I dated every woman in the world and every woman told me that I'm nothing, that's when I'm gonna be like, okay, I have nothing to offer women. But she just had a string of bad luck with guys, and she's just like down about it. And it's just didn't drain her confidence for her to be talking like that, you know.
But she 32 and single. Wouldn't that be a clue that she is not offering anything to the man? Not saying that has to be the case, but isn't that indicative of her singleness? The fact that
no, that
she's
just
going
means
through all these relationships. Like guys they're not gonna come out and say you don't have nothing to bring to the table. I mean, they're getting what they want while they're getting it, and then they move on to the next. Like guys ain't gonna, write you it's not like what do you call when you leave a company, an exit meeting where they're like, okay, this is what you could have improved on, which is what we should do, but we don't. We just move on. You know what I'm saying? So she don't know.
Tony,
she don't
that's
know that she's not bringing
only
anything to the
that
table.
will write a woman an exit letter and tell them what they could improve on. That's
No, I think that women should do it for men. I think men should do it for women. Like both people, it's not one sided. But I think it takes an extreme amount of confidence for her to publicly say that she don't bring anything to the table. Like, what do you have to bring to gain from that? But embarrassment as a woman. Like women, I think number one fear is probably something that a man might do to them, and then number two is embarrassment. And so she publicly embarrassed herself,
I don't think she just publicly embarrassed herself as far as the what I've been seeing from society and what they've been saying. A lot of women has been on her side, and of course the men has been on her side because this gives them a lot of ammo. For one, they like, yeah, I told y'all women that y'all ain't, we don't need y'all and this and that. So that's what. And let's be honest, it's a lot of low self-esteem women in the world, and it's been constructed that way because men have been in society. We've been kind of raised to make sure that they have low self-esteem so we can better deal with them. That's why a lot of men don't want women making more money than them, don't want them working. That's why a lot of men say we don't care about an educated woman. That's all got to do with making a woman feel devalued. That's making a woman feel low about themselves so they can feel better about themselves. And that's why she's feeling the way she's feeling.
Well, I think that she's being honest though
about
the baggage that she's bringing, and maybe she's not ready to be in a relationship, and
that's
maybe
different from
is. But I don't think
from saying I'm not ready and I have nothing to offer.
Well, okay, but maybe right, and I agree. Maybe she does. She has something to offer, and maybe she needs to figure out what that something is.
She ain't discovered it yet.
I think what she's saying is right now I got emotional baggage. I don't trust. I'm not nurturing. I'm not going to be patient with you. I'm not going to be loving to you because I got these kids. They getting on my nerves. I really don't want them. I'm mad because the man that I have the kids with is not with me.
But the reason
frustrated. So she's saying, you know what? Right now, I really don't have anything to offer a man.
But the reason I say is low self-esteem is because she's making a lot of assumptions. And when you make assumptions, that has something to do with how you feel about yourself. Because she's saying, if I cook you something, then maybe this and maybe that's a lot of assumptions she's making about what would she do and how somebody react. So that's got something to do with how she feels about herself.
What I thought was she probably had a conversation with some men or maybe a man that day who told her, well, look, you ain't no woman that I would want, and probably broke her down and made her feel all these things. So she's probably emotionally reacting.
A woman can't tell me something and I just be like, oh, I'm not a man.
I believe that she knows that there's truth in what whoever told her this, wherever she learned this from. She said she was today years old when she learned that she had nothing to offer. I don't know what caused her to realize this. And we know that she has something to offer, right? I'm
Right.
sure she knows she has some children. She probably knows some tricks and strategies on how to raise them, get them to behave. She, who knows? She says she doesn't have any hobbies, but there's probably something she's good at. Maybe she knows
Somebody or
money.
some people.
But what
have
I'm
made
saying
her
is
feel
like,
that way.
so I think we're caught up on the statement, I don't have anything to offer. That's a very strong, like extreme statement.
I mean, what's wrong with it though? What is wrong with that statement? What is wrong with you admitting that I don't feel really good about myself these
That's
days?
different.
That's low self-esteem, hence the word self and
Right.
and esteem.
It's
She
kind of like
sees
if you,
herself this way.
yeah, it's like if
And
you, if like Darwin, if you go to a boxing gym, like you feel like you can fight. We talked about, I think you said mentioning fighting on the other show, like fighting tall guys or whatever because they think they can fight or whatever. It's kind of like if you go to an actual boxing gym, right, and you go in there thinking you can fight, and then they beat you up, like, well, you know what? I thought I could fight, but I actually can't fight. It's like, cool. Now the real training can begin. Now we can start teaching you the proper way to jab, the proper way to duck,
No,
hook, and stuff.
I can beat somebody. No.
I mean,
Well, yeah, I'm saying, but she will please somebody. You get what I'm saying? But she's not a champion.
right.
We raise the champions over here.
You only need to be a champion to one person. When we talk about relationships, you only have to be valuable to
But I'm
one
saying,
person.
but
Only
who?
one
But
person
but
has
I'm
to
saying,
be
what
valuable.
but if you, for example, like, would you want to be a champion of the alley street fights on 87, or do you want to be a champion of the world? It's like, who do you want to be? Like, she might not want to be that type. She want to be a real champion.
And let me go
That's why
further.
she went to the
She
gym. She
raising
realized,
kids.
like, I'm out of my
She may
league.
not know right now.
Right, exactly. But at least I think that's the best thing for you to do is just
You know
admit,
what?
like, I don't know
We can
anything.
solve this.
Huh?
Everybody on this panel, who thinks this woman has value? I do.
I do.
I believe she has
I think she has value. But
Yeah.
but when
Her feelings are her feelings, and she's right for having those feelings, but she's still wrong.
well, I mean, is this really a right or wrong, or is this I'm being honest and I'm being transparent on the Facebook Live, and I'm telling y'all it was today that I realized I don't have nothing to offer because I work all the time and I just care for my kids.
This is mental health on the reverse side. She just ain't killing nobody. Okay.
But what I'm saying is
right
when somebody's not doing well, it's not a. It is okay for you to be in a funk if that's what you need to do. I think so. There's a class that I teach, moral recognition therapy, right? This is the best way I can break this down. The first stage that my clients have to go through is honesty and trust. She at stage 1. She honest about what she need to change about herself. She just told us that I'm a single mother who really most of my time is taken up with working and taking care of children. Mm-hmm. She further went on to say, I don't really, know what I like. I don't know my hobbies. And the parents on the line, and I know, let me just speak for me. I went through a phase because I only have one child, and there's a reason why I'm equipped to just have one. I went through a phase where I kind of lost myself for a minute. All I was doing every day was, because I wasn't working at the time, was getting up for 3 a.m. feedings, getting up, taking a nap when the baby did, doing housework, cooking dinner, whatever. And I repeated that for like 90 something days. And I remember I saw myself in the mirror and was like, who is this? Because this ain't Javonda.
But would you say during those 90 days you had nothing to offer your husband?
Probably 80 something of them days. Absolutely. And I'm
okay with saying that. You were taking care of the baby and you were taking care of the home. And you were
right.
So you found value in that?
What did I find value in what I was doing? Most days I did, and then other days I wanted to pull all my hair out.
But that's a feeling, right? So like I said, her feelings are, she's right about, you can't tell nobody how they feel. If she feel like she don't have nothing to offer, that's I get it, and I agree with her. I can't tell how she's.
That's her thought. That's her thought. That's her thought, and her behavior is evidence of that. Because what does she say she does the majority of the time? She works and takes care of her kids, right? A person who has a different thought of, I think I'm a great woman because I may like poetry and I like to write and I have strong political views. Her behavior is going to match up with that thinking because our thoughts control our behavior.
So
this is clearly a woman who has a perception of self, and I think it's temporarily because y'all know me. If y'all haven't learned anything about me by now, I'm pessimistic and I'm hopeful, and I try to keep an open mind.
Did you say you pessimistic?
Optimistic.
Not pessimistic, optimistic. That's what I meant to say.
I was riding with it. I just rolled with it. Like, okay.
But what Tony said earlier about men and women being honest when they know they're not going to work out with somebody or they know they're breaking up and they come to a place where they can actually ask each other, okay, what were my strengths? What were my weaknesses? What would you tell me to do moving forward in the next relationship? Do you know how brilliant that would be?
Absolutely.
Do you know that on my wedding anniversary that me and my husband, we have these conversations? How can I be a better wife? What I need to do better the next year?
To you
fell for that, Jovo? You fell for that?
Ain't no fail. Hey, and we remind each other throughout the year. Remember what we said?
Okay.
Hold on.
It's helpful.
So if someone broke up with you, obviously they don't like you. So you will want an letter of them telling you what you should change. Of course, and you're going to take that into your next relationship. I don't think so.
Well,
I didn't say that. I said I'm gonna take heed to what they're saying.
You gonna take heed to someone you don't want to be with nobody. In theory, that sounds good, but let's think about it.
I don't want to monopolize the conversation. But the pink elephant in the room is how open are we to not only criticism from other people, but criticism towards ourselves. Like on Insecure, Issa got two personalities, right? She got the Issa that's looking in the mirror and the one that live in the mirror, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she goes back and forth with those women.
Mm-hmm.
Women do it. We do it. I do it to myself. Ashley, Cannon, there's that other woman inside of you where you kind of check yourself like, girl, like what the hell? Oh, girl. What you doing?
Ever felt like you are useless?
Have I ever thought I was useless?
Yeah.
Oh. Who, me? You asking me?
I just
all of us? Has there been you talking to somebody who
hell no.
Who you talking to somebody who has dealt with self-esteem before, like low self-esteem. I've been kind of where she is without the kids and without the rawness of all I got to offer is in between my legs.
But can you differentiate how you feel and what's really going on though? Like if you say you woke up 80% of the time, you woke up and felt like you didn't have nothing to value. Can you look back and say right now, like, I think I did. I just felt that way.
I do. I see where you're going with this. Feelings are not facts. They are feelings. I get where you're going with that. I understand that. But this video, this is not a right or wrong, bad or good. This is somebody who was transparent enough to say, I woke up today and I realized that basically all I do is work and take care of my kids. Right now, I don't have the capacity, nor do I have what it might take to be in a relationship with certain men.
This video just set y'all back 50 years.
Hey,
no. Hey, like
years. I mark my words. Y'all go hear y'all gonna be seeing this video every time y'all say some crazy to a dude. He gonna say, "Listen here, you ain't worth." I'm telling you, y'all just set yourself back 50 years.
Feelings and facts can be, interchangeable. Like a feeling can become a fact after a while. It's like somebody, like you said, Darwin earlier, was like, if my last 5 relationships, they were telling me this, then I would believe it. If you had the exit interview and those 5 women told you the same thing, then you were like, well, shit, then you would know, right? If everybody's saying that, whether they're angry or not, they all saying the exact same thing to you. They're not psychic. They're saying how they feel. And in the same capacity, if when you interviewing your next person that you're gonna be with, you ask them, how could you have, like, what could you have done in your last relationship to make it work? What do you think you could have did better? Because women are quick, and I'm speaking for women because I don't date men.
That's what self-esteem comes in at. Now,
that's what
you let those 5 people discourage you and tell you that what you have is nothing now?
Because it's not discouragement. No, it's criticism. It's
But
criticism.
if
But
the same criticism is exactly the same, what do you think that is? You know what I'm saying? At some point, you'd be like, it's me. You know what I mean?
Okay,
It's the
hold
same
on.
criticism.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna let all of y'all finish. Okay, I gave y'all chance. I was quiet, you know,
That's
and I
when
let everybody add their pieces, right?
I'm just gonna end it with this. 5 people can tell me the exact same thing about myself. And at the end of the day, I'm still gonna say I have a lot to offer somebody else. That's just listen, that's just how it is. Y'all wasn't for me. I know it takes a long time to find the person for me. It's somebody out there for me. Y'all 5 people ain't. So that's cool.
Okay.
That's just me.
Be
Ain't no one
you.
gonna encourage me in my mission.
Well, what I wanted to say is that everything requires context, right? Just like y'all said, the context of her relationship obviously has a lot to do with a lot of the different conversations that have sprouted up recently on social media, where people, especially men specifically, are now asking, what do you bring to the table, right? Like I've never heard this my whole entire life growing up. I've never seen such a thing. It did not exist. So obviously she's framing her thought process and everything around that whole entire concept. The biggest thing that I think is the problem with what we're seeing right now is when you ask a question. This is what I'm seeing from that question, right? When you're asking a question and you're like, what do you bring to the table? Or if you ask them more broadly, just like you did, if somebody's saying, what does a woman bring to the table for me? Which is a question that some of those men in that same vein are asking. What does a woman bring to the table for me, right? My thing is I think we have officially run into a generation of people that have zero idea of why they want relationships, period.
Lack
like
of
why
self-awareness.
relationships matter, period. Like, and I'm not even just talking about romantic relationships. I mean freaking relationships with friends. I'm talking about all types of relationships. Like, people are so removed from why we even want relationships with each other, because if that were not the case, you wouldn't even be asking those kind of questions. You would know what you want from a woman, and you would seek out women who fit what it is that you want, right? If you even understood why, but you want somebody to convince you why you should want a relationship with a woman. What? Like, so we got to sit here and really try to backtrack all the way back to try to figure out why we want relationships in the first place now. So we are so removed from that. So we spend time on, again, I keep going back to, we spending a lot of time on basic shit that doesn't matter. And that's why people are having such a hard time in relationships and having such a hard time maintaining relationships, or even understand what is valuable and what matters. So when we think about what we really truly need from a partner, right? It's really only 3 things. It's really 3 main things. Kindness. We need kindness from a partner. We need shared vulnerability. Both of us have to be able to be vulnerable, with each other. And we need understanding from our partner. That's all. Those are the only 3 things that we really need from a partner, right? So when we start getting caught up in all of this, like, I took a special note of some of the things that she was trying to say, because I wanted to understand what her concept was of, even, first of all, what a man is for and what a woman is for, or what she was even saying. The only things that I heard her bring up when she said the words, I have nothing to offer a man, all she mentioned was cooking. So that's what you have, like, that's the thing.
And nurturing.
Has to
She said
offer.
nurturing.
Right. No, I'm going down the list. I'm going down the list. She said cooking. Then she said nurturing, which she said she can't because she has to nurture her children, which is fine. So she said that, and nurturing. She said something about being his peace. And then she said some coochie. And she said she was emotionally upset, right? And then she said she's never been a woman to a man. She didn't articulate what that even means. This is why I say I think people are so, they don't even know what they like you say, it does boil down to not even having an understanding of self, but it's not just her. It's all of these conversations. It's all of this stuff. I don't even know how to be a woman to a man. What does that mean? What does that mean generally? What does that mean to you specifically? What is it that you're even talking about, right? Then she said, I expect a man to come to me, already ready, to provide and to work and handle himself. That's what she said she wants from a man. So you want a man who works, provides, and handles himself. That's your criteria for a man. And in your mind, to be in a relationship and to bring him value, you have to be a woman to him, which in your mind means you cook for him and you are emotionally nurturing and all these other things. This is why I say those things we worried about the wrong things, right? Because to Miss Jovo's point, and I'm glad she brought up the fact that she said she went through a period of time, right? You were in a relationship with your husband, right? Because your baby was born, right? You were not able to give him nurturing and all of those other things in that moment because life has seasons, things change, all of that stuff happens. Maybe you couldn't cook for him, all of this other stuff. That's what I'm saying. The stuff that you're naming, what is that? And then so what you would need from your partner in that moment is shared vulnerability. You would need to be able to be vulnerable enough with your partner to be like, man, right now I'm bitter, I'm upset, it's a lot going on. You know what I'm saying? What you would need from them is understanding. I understand that you're,
and there it is,
you know, and those different types of things. Then you would need kindness. Well, what can I do to help things be better for you and stuff like that? That's what partnerships and relationships are supposed to be.
Miss Jovo, you is somebody.
What?
Oh, I know I'm somebody now, but what I'm saying is, old girl that came on here, she don't know this lack of self, and not to cut off Cannon, but that lack of self-awareness. Yeah, you know, most people, it's 168 hours in a week. Most people couldn't even break down what you do for all 168 hours because they lack self-awareness. They lack self-awareness.
Well, I think she's at the point where she's gaining some self-awareness. Does she need some self-awareness?
She's honest about she need to gain it.
But what is she gaining though?
But listen, so I don't care what you do, right? Like, this is for women and men. You could have some wonderful qualities and you could do some wonderful things. I'll take it from a woman's point of view. If a man comes into my life and he buys me roses and he's thoughtful and he's kind and he, you know, he prays with me, he does things that I do like, right? But he's mean, he is vengeful, he holds grudges, he's distrusting. That's baggage. And you are not in a position as to where you can have a healthy relationship. We all have some bad trait, right? Some negative trait. And all of us fall short in relationships. So we do need compassion and we need kindness and we need understanding. But you could be in such an emotional state where you aren't healed. We talk about healing a lot on this show. You could be in an emotional state or at a point in your life where you really don't need to be with anybody. And it doesn't matter it doesn't matter that you cook sometimes. It doesn't matter that you come up with great birthday gifts. It doesn't matter that you iron the clothes or whatever it is, the good things. I see relationships like you got to have, I look at them not quantitatively, but qualitatively. You could have these great things, but if you got these two things that are horrible and they cause so much like burden, that's a problem. You're not in a position to be in a relationship with somebody.
See,
so it's like
somebody or that person.
But I was gonna finish. But I wasn't totally finished yet. What I was saying is I'm not negating that there is an issue there with the things that she was saying, because it is. But what I'm saying is the conclusions that she is drawing is what's problematic, and the basis of what she's basing it in is what's problematic. The other problem that I was going to say, to your point, what you said about bringing baggage and things like that, I agree. Part of the problem is that we're too busy trying to get into relationships to find happiness, as opposed to getting into relationships to express a happiness that we already possess. That is the problem. We have all of these expectations that we're putting on other people. That's why people are having a hard time with relationships now. And it's not just, if we look at it, right? If we look at it, it's not just romantic relationships. Parents having problems having relationships with their kids. People having problems having relationships with their siblings. People having problems keeping friends. It's across the board, because what I'm saying is people have all of these unrealistic expectations on what they're supposed to get out of relationships. And it's based on, like I say, those arbitrary things that she was talking about. Because what happens, and what I'm saying is, her having that thought process, it still is not lending her self-awareness, because what's happening is she's thinking like, oh, okay, I'm supposed to cook, I'm supposed to nurture, like all of these kind of action things that she's thinking. Okay, she can get better at doing those things at some point, right? At some point, but then you're not always gonna be able to do those things. Just like Miss Jofo said, sometimes when you have kids, like when I have my daughter, yeah, just because she's saying, "Oh, I'm frustrated when I'm with my kids, so I can't give it to you," you will do that in a marriage too. You will still be frustrated with your kids, and so now this man finna leave you because right now you frustrate.
Right.
That's what I'm saying about those unrealistic expectations. So
Exactly.
if he's sitting there and he looking for you to give him happiness, and like I said, he don't have that kindness, that shared vulnerability, and that understanding. Y'all don't have that with each other. That's why the relationships is breaking up. Because, oh, you're not cooking for me. Oh, you're not nurturing me. Oh, you didn't do this. Like all of this stuff that we're talking about. Even if she's saying, oh, he coming to me, he needs to be a provider, he needs to do this, he lose his job. So what, now you finna leave him because now he lost his job, so he can't provide right now? Because you're not giving him the kindness, the share vulnerability, and the understand. Like, he can't come to you vulnerable. You know, I was having a real hard time. This is what happened. Just bear with me. You can't give him the understand. Like, you know what? I understand. Let's work together. Let's figure out what we're gonna do. People are not doing that, and that's what I'm saying is the problem. People are so when you talking about these stupid conversations about what you bring to the table, what you bring to the, like, what are y'all even like? What are we discussing?
Better start asking people if they happy. How about that? Are you happy?
Yes. Are you happy with yourself?
I wrote the book.
She
the
wasn't.
biggest mistake. The
yes,
biggest
and
mistake.
I agree with that point.
My marriage is broke up in chapters. Let me tell y'all about chapters 1 through 4. The biggest mistake I made as a very young wife. I was 23 years old when I got married. I looked to my husband for things that I should have been putting in myself. Let me say that again.
Yeah.
I looked to my husband for the things that I should have been putting in myself. And I still have to check myself on that. I think the group that we all met in, I think one of my very first comments on one of these posts about what women bring to the table, I remember telling one of those guys, you better ask her if she's happy. Y'all worried about the wrong stuff.
The wrong stuff.
Because you get linked up with people who have these expectations, like Cannon said, that they supposed to make you happy. You know, I tell my single girlfriends all the time, it is not, they look at me and I'm like, it is not my husband's job to make sure that I am quote unquote happy. That's my job. If he want to add to that, woohoo! But that ain't his job one. That's my job one. That's my job one. I had to learn that because I married a guy who, and now we all joke about it as a family. My take on affection in relationship and his take on affection is very different. My husband is not quote unquote affection. He's more affectionate now, but he's not an affectionate guy per se. Oh my God, chapters 1 through 4. You need to do this. You need to do that. And the light bulb came on. Some of this I can be doing for myself. Like, girl, what you talking about? And see, that's the hard conversation. And Cannon, I'm glad you brought that up. That a lot of single women don't want to have because they think that it's, well, you making excuses for him or y'all putting it all on me. Well, some of it, newsflash, if you want to be somebody's wife, how a lot of stuff is on him, it's a lot of stuff on you too. But guess what? This is the secret, y'all. What's the part that you control? That's the other part of the narrative. You got men wanting to talk about what women need to do and women talking about what men need to do, but nobody wants to talk about what's within their personal control. Your happiness. That's within your personal control. You make your own self happy. Now, if you have certain things like what Ashley was mentioning about, you know, I like to pray with my partner, or I like flowers, I like this, I like that, then express those things. Don't expect your partner to read your mind. Okay? Like, share what you like. Be vocal with love language. Identify what each other, you know, what you like or whatever. But yeah, that whole happiness discussion, I can tell by what she said in that video. She said she work and take care of her kids. I'm stuck on that. I'm sorry. That's what she says she does. And she cooks for her children and nurtures them. She pours everything into them. I was that mom who poured everything into their child. And I can tell you, you start to create a hole of loneliness when that child gone to bed or when that child is at school. You start asking yourself, who the heck am I? That's what I saw in that video.
And
Yes,
it's not his
right.
child either, by the way.
Yep.
Right.
It's not his child. It's not even his child. So she giving all that love and affection and attention and food to the children first, and it's kind of like,
Exactly. So
right. I mean, the thing is like I say, all of that is fine and dandy, and I agree with the basis of what everybody said as far as what she's exemplifying, as far as her self-esteem, as far as what she feels like, all of those other things. And I only can agree to the extent, like I said, this is obviously how she feels about herself. Only thing that I'm saying is that the framing that she's putting it in, the frame of mind, the takeaways, all of that stuff is faulty. Even from the perspective of what, like you're saying, is like, oh, well, she giving this affection, this attention to somebody else's child. It's not his child. All of these other things. There may be a man out there who can't have no kids. He may not even have kids of his own. You don't know. No, I'm telling you, people need to get out of these boxes. People need to get out of these boxes on thinking things have to only be one way. In this one little thing, they got to fit into this box, right? And that is just if this is the situation, then this is what it's going to be. And what I mean by that is just, if I have a child that's by another man, then it's not going to work.
But those are outliers. You're naming outliers as
but that
majority.
May be a perfect fit for someone. And compatibility is more important than anything else. And and being complementary to each other. So if she maybe she is a person that's a little bit more quick to get frazzled, right? Because like in certain circumstances, I'm like that a lot. Like if it's certain things my husband already know, I'll be like he already.
I think we can all agree that she's going to be an outlier.
But he could see when I'm getting real frazzled about certain things. Like it could be minor things, but he know when I got a lot of stuff going on, I'm gonna immediately just start acting like whatever. But he's way calmer in situations like that, right? Compatibility. Mm-hmm. So I'm not gonna come and be like, well, I have nothing to offer my husband because I can't be calm when a lot of things are going on. No, I don't need to be calm with a lot of things going on. That's what he there for, because he's better at that than I am.
Yeah, but Kenny, right? You're talking. I think we have to distinguish though. Like, if that woman, from what I know about her, if she got into a relationship, whatever man, most men, I'm not saying everybody, but most men, even if he had his own baggage, would not stay with her. They probably used her until they got finished using her.
Yeah, if she's sitting there talking about some,
and that's with men but listen, but that's with anybody. Even on the flip side, you can have you can have a man who, like I said before, who has certain that you really like. But if he's not able to provide and he's not trying to, if he got a whole lot of other baggage, baby mama's baggage, a woman, but some women are not going to stick around with that. And what I think,
find the ones that will.
But my whole thing is like, but why? Like, why do you want to stay in that place? Like, why would you want
She's trying to improve.
You're frustrated. You're frustrated. You're not happy with your kid. You're not happy being a mama right now. Like, that's a big issue right there. You're not taking care of yourself. You're not happy with your own life because you yourself said, I'm only doing this and I'm only taking care of my kids and working. That's all she does. She's obviously not happy.
I just thought of one thing. I just thought when I listened to me, the part where she says, when they were talking about the possibility of them getting into a relationship, he then asked the question, well, what would you add to my life? Meaning, like, when I'm looking at it, it sounds like they was like in a fucking relationship, and they and that she wanted to be his girlfriend, and he was like, why would I?
Exactly.
You don't bring anything to the table. So it's like, why would I do that? He's using his own common sense, looking at this female. You cook, okay, cool. I got Uber Eats. I mean, why do I, like, he was asking a legitimate question. Why do I need you in my life as my girlfriend? And rather than her be upset about it, she evaluated and was like, I need to work on myself. Or if I want to get what I want, which is a man to take care of this child, because I'm not with the baby's father, obviously, then there's some improvements that I need to do. She doesn't bring anything to the table. She is admitting that to herself. And I feel like that's the building. That's where the building starts.
Yeah,
and you can find
another dude
she should have been asking herself. This is what I'm saying. I'm not saying that there's no problem, right? But what I'm saying is it's a misidentification. What she should have been asking herself, if that's the conclusion that you came to, And I feel that that's a very likely guess, right? The one you just gave. The conclusion that she should have came to is, what am I doing that I continue to put myself in a situation where a man is only seeing me for sex like that? The only question that I would ask myself is, if I'm dating a man and I'm with a man and he turned and I'm pushing for a relationship or whatever it is, and he turn around and be like, why would I want you in my life? Why do you bring back? I'm gonna be like,
But you only wrong when you know you're wrong, though.
I'm not gonna.
Was she already?
You only wrong when you know you're wrong, Cannon.
No.
Like once you know better, you can do better. Like she said, at the age of 32, I just realized. At the age of 32, I just realized for the first time ever in life. So she's just realizing this. Now, if she keeps continually doing it perpetually, then it's an issue.
No, but she doesn't realize what the problem is. She thinks she's not cooking. She thinks
she said she did cook.
She said other stuff.
She said I do cook.
I think the subcontext was, I just realized today that I'm not happy. That's what she said.
Right. Thank you. Right. Which
she said she realized today I don't bring anything to the table.
No,
what I'm saying is, that is the part that she needs to work on, right? What I'm saying is, the problem comes into play, and she will, the road that she is going down with her thought process, right? As far as, well, I need to be nurturing, and I need to have hobbies, and I need to do that. She could have hobbies, right? She could start trying to be more nurturing. She could get babysitters that could give her some free time to, cool down and other stuff. But if she don't handle why she's actually not happy, and if she don't handle why she's putting herself in, if she doesn't really identify, right, what it is that she is doing that is putting her in situations with men that they see her as just for sex, then she's still gonna end up in the same situation. She could have
bring things to the table.
Just seen for sex. She could be more nurturing and all that, and still just be seen for.
But sex. You're not seeing the reason why you only use her for sex, because she doesn't bring anything to the table.
Right, and I think she's starting to realize
it's because she is not happy. Let me explain something to y'all.
It's the same thing, though.
It's not the same thing.
She has some inner issues. Whether you say she's not happy or not, she has some inner issues that she needs to work on.
I think what Cannon is saying.
Now, I think we're saying the same thing. We're just saying that the motivation should be different. It shouldn't just be, oh, I need to do this, that, and the other so that I can be appealing to a man. I think we all agree that she has some internal issues. She's bitter, she's angry, she's frustrated, she doesn't take care of herself. She feels useless outside of, her children. She only works, so she's probably stressed. I think we all agree on that.
And she's tired. If she is the way you are, she's tired.
In the context of the video, we're talking about what she brings to a man. But you guys are right. Like, she also has to work on that, just because that's what she needs to work on. She needs to become a happier person. She needs
she let some clown discourage her. I don't think she feel
why can't the question be, how can she compliment me? Or how can we work together? Like, what would it be like for us to be together versus what do I bring to the table? Because if you ask me what I bring to,
I don't blame
him. If you ask me what I bring, I'm gonna tell you I bring the chairs.
When you're bitter,
because it's a
but
crazy
it doesn't
question.
matter. It doesn't matter. There is nothing that we can be compatible with if you are bringing drama and weight and negative energy to my life. There's nothing. Mm-hmm. And people have the right to decide what they want to invest in. Me as a woman.
So let me just say this. We need to differentiate between baggage and trauma versus imperfections and character.
You got baggage. That lady got baggage, okay? That lady has baggage.
Everybody do.
She unhappy. But I'm just saying for the sake of the conversation.
But
I'm just saying for the sake of the conversation.
Relationships, though, people, and we talk about this, people get into relationships when they themselves are not ready, or they invite somebody into their lives that is not ready.
Yeah, just like
nobody is perfect.
What she brings to the table.
Nobody is.
Relationship.
Yeah,
he don't know how to identify what somebody.
When the dude asks a woman that, I feel like he could possibly date men.
Wait.
Because why would I even ask a woman what you bring to the table? I know what a woman brings to the table because I'm into women. Like so if a woman says,
so that's all you interested in is what she got.
Yeah, so ain't nothing else for you to date but a woman or a man. So what does it matter? You dating one of them, you go date her.
Wait, so you
You
saying
need to work on
all
what you need
Cannon
to
got to
work
do is
on
be a
with it.
female? All Cannon's
So
got to
we're
do is
talking
be a
about
female,
this
and that's all
situation.
you need. Just be
That
a
situation,
female.
dude definitely look at he don't want no woman.
I want us to stress between. I want us to be able to differentiate between character defects and imperfections versus baggage. Obviously, this woman has some things going on, and she realizes that right now I don't need to be with nobody, and I get that.
But
Yeah.
you can't put
speak to
coochie
what-
in Uber Eats. You can get food Uber Eats, but coochie, that's a woman. So first of all, you need a woman just for that. We gonna start there. We gonna
Yeah,
start.
but he don't got to get it from her though.
But we talking about women.
Yeah, he don't got to get it from her specifically.
Well. She should understand that she still has coochie to offer.
Ultimately, I
She
think
just
we all,
dismissed it like it was. Oh, I ain't go coochie.
It's like happy coochie, but it's coochie. That's what
but
Darwin
ultimately,
said.
you know what? We all like. I agree with you all that we have to be compassionate to people. You know, like I don't have a whole lot of relationship experience, but I can say, like, just in all relationships, you know, with my friendships, with my family, we all have to be compassionate, understanding, forgiving. Nobody is perfect. You know, I always talk about the scripture, make allowances for people's faults. That's something that I stand on. And I'm a very forgiving person. And, you know, I think that's important in relationships because I messed up. Everybody's going to mess up, right? But we all ultimately have a choice of what we want to accept in our lives. And I think that she shouldn't be living her life thinking, oh, what is my value in relation to a man? But you also have to understand people, when they are deciding who they want to be with, have every right to decide what they want to deal with and what they don't. And we all make character judgments, and we need to make character judgments. And I think that if any of us right now, you guys are married, Tony, I don't think you are, but like if you guys were dating, okay, you would be evaluating people, okay? And nobody has to be perfect, but you're going to sit here and decide, oh, is this the drama or the baggage or the issues that I want to pick up? And some men, even if they got back, look, I talk about this all the time, especially with these Black manosphere men. They be having 3 kids, 2 different baby mamas, and they be like, I ain't dating no woman with a kid. You know, they can have their own set of drama. But every man has a right to say, and just like every woman has a right to say, I do not want
I don't want to deal with that.
My life. Yeah.
So what if a man? So if the man ends a relationship or whatever fling like this, like, you know what, you don't have nothing to offer me except for coochie. Boom. Instead of saying, you know what, you have a lot to offer, but you're just not for me. The things you have to offer, it's not for me. You know, so it might be somebody out there for you that the stuff that you do, they cool with. That's the thing. Men, we do things to knock women on, have them have low self-esteem. It's a reason she's saying this. And it's not because she has this self-discovery all at 33 all of a sudden. It's not because of that. It's not because of that. It's because
somebody probably told her this.
Well, let me ask you, Ashley, do you have any exes that you've dated in your past that you felt like didn't have much to offer your life personally, didn't have much to offer?
I don't know. I'm very particular. I told you I don't have a lot of relationship experience. I've dated, went out on dates and stuff.
Have you ever met any men that you felt like didn't have a lot to offer, even if you didn't date them, but you met them and you assessed it and you was like,
well, for one thing, my thinking, I never think about if he has something to offer me. I think about his character, whether or not we're compatible. And I wanted to make a point about this. I think that's the wrong question. I don't any dating situation like, oh, well, what does he have to offer me? That's not how I operate. You know, I think about, are we compatible? You know, is this a man I want to submit to? Is this a man I like? You know,
that's what I feel
like. So it's like, I think of other things, but I make character judgments. And there have been guys that I have known where I'm like, oh, I don't want that. I don't want that.
Right. Correct.
Same thing. Right? And it's not to say, oh, he's horrible and he doesn't have anything to offer.
Exactly.
I wouldn't say that to somebody. I would.
Well,
but
I understand is, regardless to whether or not you would say it, do you believe that to be the truth? Whether you
everybody has something to offer, but I don't think of relationships like this though.
Not transactional.
Yeah, I don't think
Right,
think like I think that's problematic, and I was gonna
Yes.
make a point about that. I think
That's
that's
what Cannon was saying.
But do I think that that person, it would be foolish for somebody else to get into a relationship with that person? I say yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
maybe somebody like you.
That doesn't mean that they're not. It depends on what it is. You know,
Right.
it depends on what
Correct.
it is.
Correct.
Right. But
what
we
are
all
these?
make character judgments.
What are these offerings that are just so extreme? Like the offerings that a woman might have don't have to be anything like necessarily extravagant. It could be as simple as, you can make me laugh, tell a good story. Can you do a massage or something like that?
Yeah.
Like, what do you have to offer? And doesn't make it seem like, you're not a rocket scientist, so get the fuck out of my life. It's like, it's not that serious.
No,
it's like get some skills that are suitable for a relationship and make it work. Like, why is it so hard when people literally might go into a temporary season, so you ask them what they bring to the table. It's like, get your shit together, yo. You should have some things that not make somebody else happy, but improve their happiness. You get what I'm saying? And then I don't think there's anything wrong with people trying to get some basic skills, life skills, you know?
Right.
She named everything she don't bring to the table instead of stuff that she do bring to the table.
It wasn't enough.
But no. But
her cooking wasn't enough.
Is that's something totally different than
For
these
that
conversations that we are having about tables and shit. That's what I'm saying. I have a friend right now who I want to say maybe 2 or 3 years ago married a man. I guess they've known each other since childhood. Whatever. She didn't have any children. She's older. She didn't have any children. He had 3 daughters that he had custody of. For me, that's a lot of baggage, right? For me, I'm gonna be like, soon as I see him, I'm gonna be like, nah, not I said the cat. What you got to offer me? You got too much going on. You got these 3 kids, they in the house too, and they mama not doing that. Not me. These ain't my kids, right? That's not gonna be for me. I already had a son, right? That's not gonna be for me. But for her, that was perfect. I've never seen her happier before than she is in this relationship now. And those 3 girls are her children now, right?
Again, outlier. Everybody.
No. But right. No, it is an outlier, right? That's fine. But what I'm saying is that the problem comes in when we're thinking that everybody is going to fit into these neat, but life is messy as fuck. And that's everybody's problem. They don't understand that life is messy. The majority of us have something going on some kind of way, right? That somebody gonna look at and say, I don't really want to take that on. And that's fine. But then that does not turn around and mean that, I'm all these. That's why compatibility and all of those things matter so much more than just being like I might not have anything to offer you. And that's fine. Right. But that's the assessment that
the only thing I'm saying is compatibility is limited.
Turn around and tell me that I don't have nothing to offer a man. Like, you better go sit down somewhere.
You think I like everything about my wife? Hell no.
Why not? Candace is fantastic. Number 1, I think we should all acknowledge Candace is fantastic. Number 2, I think everybody should operate in their pie chart. Other people's pie charts are bigger than others. So it's like, I'm sure it's someone for everybody, but what's the chances that you find them? You have a better chance if you improve yourself. That's all I'm saying.
Oh yeah.
Also want to point out with what Candace said about these boxes, because let me tell you something. Ask me how much the check box for Mr. Mosley matters now on year 17. It matters about this much. Okay, it matters about this much, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because I don't care if you marry Mr. and Mrs. Perfection and they have these excellent children. It's gonna get messy. You're gonna go through these waves and stages, and you need to be able to have somebody in your life who is going to be able to ride those waves with you, point blank. That is what it's all about. Marriage. Let me tell you something. That check box that you checking off when y'all first, that feeling and that butterfly, I can remember just as plain as day, and me and him still giggle about it when we first met, and that newness and all of that. Do y'all know how hard that is to keep that ish alive?
Girl, you can't keep that shit alive.
Do you know how you have to evolve and change and really shape and mold that into, because year 1 in marriage is not going to look like year 3. And year 3 is not going to look like year 8 and 7 and 9 and 10 and all of that. I could write a book, and pretty much anybody who's been married over 10 years, they could probably write a book with all these different chapters. The checklist only matters when you dating. that checklist, you ain't gonna go back and review that. Well, do they do this? Do they offer this? Do they bring this to the table? Because by the time you've been married for 4 or 5 years, what you really trying to do is to establish a way of life where you're living and flourishing in marriage versus what you see a lot with some folks.
Yes.
Like with some of the generations behind us, they were just surviving. Let me survive this year. You know, let me survive until I'm working with somebody right now that the wife just told him a year from when their youngest child graduated from high school. She said the day after they graduate, I'm done.
Out of here.
And she was, listen, she packed up, she presented him with the papers before the baby went off to college. And people talking about a box.
Yeah, because the thing is also your expectations and requirements will also change over time.
Yes, they evolve.
So the box you might have before, it might change. Like before, I didn't want a woman that smoked. Now I might need that woman to flame up a couple of times out the week to get things going. So the box go have a checklist, but it's just gonna change. You know what I'm saying?
It's gonna change. Or what I saw earlier this week on social media about the woman, the African American woman. They have, like, her and her husband have this reality show on TLC where they have all these children. I don't know how many of it is, but they talked about how thin she was and how in shape she was. And what I kept screaming out in my mind, and then I finally said something about it on social media, was that, do you realize the percentage of Black women that are dying giving birth to kids? Do you realize the percentage of Black women that have fertility issues and they still go on to get pregnant and have kids, and then they further complicate what they had before they had children? So the other part of this, like even the physical appearance, you know, that washboard stomach was great on date 5, but let's fast forward to year 7 of marriage. Is one of your requirements going to be that he stay in the gym 3 times a week so you can see that? No, I'm just saying. People get caught up in the boxes and checking out the list, and they're not really, like Cannon said, a lot of them, and I'm going to just go ahead and say it, a lot of this new generation, they ain't built to do the real work that's going to get them, because people want to frown on longevity. And what I say to them, I can't really say it because we on camera and I can't really use that hand gesture. You are not going to tell me that me getting to the point that I'm at in my marriage is not success. It is. Longevity, don't let nobody tell you differently. It says a lot about who you are and your partner. Okay. Despite what social media says, the society says, we ain't just suffering. Okay, to get to these
until you get the divorce papers when the kid graduate.
I don't know.
Well, I'm just.
I know a married couple. They've been together.
We ain't just suffer.
Over
Some
30
of us trying to live
years,
and be happy. You know. So I just want to encourage people to understand, like, if marriage not your goal and you just out there dating as a sport, hey, live your life. But if marriage is the goal, you might need to do some type of value clarification. Okay, to really identify what's a priority. That's all I'm saying. So,
All righty. Did anyone want to close us out? We had a good convo.
Very good.
Great convo.
Yes.
Would anyone like to close us out quickly?
With this subject, or?
Yeah, with the subject.
I'll just say, to everybody's point, I think a lot of people checklists, they have a lot of things on there that aren't necessarily important longevity wise, but I think that instead of worried about, things on checklists that you were worried about when you was in high school, is she light skinned, is she dark skinned, or whatever the case is, just more foundational things like, is she a ride or die? Is she going to be there a long time? Does she like taking care of people? Does she like taking care of kids? I think cooking and cleaning is a part of that, personally. But I don't feel, but all those other things are extra because, as we all know, looks fade over time, and maintaining a healthy lifestyle becomes harder as things get harder in life and stuff like that. So I think picking the right things to put on your checklist is super important, but putting the right things on there are more important.
And I would like to add,
all righty,
don't be discouraged when you're not meeting somebody's checklist, because it's a checklist out there for you.
Okay, I agree with that. Thank you all so much. Thank y'all.
All right.
We had a good combo. I can't wait till next week.
Yes.
And thank you, everybody out there watching. Please share our content. Tell a friend. Send a text message. Share it on Facebook. Let other people know, because we want this show to grow. We are committed. We are dedicated. And we have so many ideas and things that we want to do with the show, but we want to do it for people. So please help us grow our fan base. All right. And y'all have a good night.
All right.
Thank
Good,
you.
everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Good night.
Like
See
and
y'all later.
subscribe.
Bye-bye.